I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order of the Brawley City Council and successor agency to the Brawley Community Redevelopment Agency. Our special meeting agenda beginning Tuesday at 5 p.m. Call to order, please.
Minutes will reflect all council members present.
Okay, thank you. Invocation, Bobby, no?
Father, we come before you this evening, my Lord, and first of all, we just thank you for such a beautiful day in our beloved city, Lord. I thank you for each and every single one of these council members, those that you have selected, Father God. It says in your word that every person in a position of authority has been placed there by you, Lord. These people were handpicked by you. And so I pray, Lord, that each and every single one of them would use the wisdom and the guidance that you have given them, Father God, for all of the things that are on the agenda tonight, Father God. I ask for your peace. I ask for your resolution. I ask for your strength, Father God. And I ask for your Holy Spirit, Father God, to reside within these walls tonight, Father God, for each and every single person that is here, Lord, that they would have an open heart and an open mind to the decisions that will be made here tonight, Father God. I thank you once again for each and every single one of these people here, Father God, and I thank you for our beautiful city. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you, Bobby.
Okay, Pledge of Allegiance, Mayor Pro Tem Helen.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, first item on the agenda is approval of our agenda.
I make a motion. Oh, I'm sorry.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, number 2 is public appearances and comments not to exceed 4 minutes. This is the time for the public to address the council on any item not appearing on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. The mayor will recognize you when you come to the microphone. Please state your name for the record. You are not allowed to make personal attacks on individuals or make comments which are slanderous or which may invade an individual's personal privacy. Please direct your questions and comments to the city council. Is there any member of the public that would like to come forward and address the council? Okay, if not, we'll go to item A, introduction of Brawley Police Sergeant Daniel Santiago by Police Chief Michael Crankshaw.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, staff, and community. It's a great pleasure to introduce a promotion within our ranks, within our department. I'd like to introduce Sergeant Daniel Santiago. Daniel started with our department in 2002. He promoted the rank of police agent in 2005. During his tenure with the department, he served in a variety of capacities, including our motor officer, as a traffic officer for several years, a field training officer, and recently served as the administrative training sergeant or agent. So to have someone with his experience and to be able to teach our younger officers and now have someone in that supervisory role that can mentor our officers is a wonderful thing to have, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce him.
Say thank you. They say you cannot choose your family, you know, who your parents are, who your siblings, who your cousin. But 15 years ago, I chose the city of Brawley to be my family.
Aww.
And I just want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity. And unlike some family members, the city of Brawley has never disappointed me. I just want to say thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members, for this opportunity.
Fantastic.
Congratulations. God bless you. Congratulations.
Good job, brother. Congratulations.
Good job, Daniel.
Take up.
Hey, Chief.
You could have just
He
dropped the
knows
mic
how to
and walked
do
up
it.
right there. It's nothing. I'll go ahead and
I'm not concerned that he will not be able to handle his roll call, so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Would you like comments?
Well, congratulations, and yes, welcome again to our family, and God bless you on your journey that you're headed towards, and we will keep you busy.
Thank you.
I just want to congratulate you on your promotion and hope that, thank you for the 15 years that you've already dedicated to our city, and we look forward to you having a very continuing successful career with our city of Brawley.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Sergeant, it's great saying that. Congratulations. I'll say probably the same thing if you pull the tapes in the past, but being promoted to the rank of sergeant, I've always heard is the best rank and position in law enforcement. So I'm sure you're going to relish that, enjoy that, and lead the troops. So we look forward to it. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Sergeant Santiago, it's been a pleasure having you here in the city of Brawley. I've been here for quite some time as well, and I'll tell you, every experience with you has been a very positive one. I appreciate what you do and who you are, and I know that you're going to do a great job. So congratulations to you and everybody in your family.
Thank you, Mr. Nava.
Okay, and thank you and congratulations on your promotion. I would like to say, as I tell all the officers here in town, be safe out there to get the job done, and I appreciate your service.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Brawley.
Thank you.
That's how you do it,
Thank you,
Chief.
Chief.
Right there, you mic drop and then he walks out, just like that.
All right.
He's trained well.
Okay, item 2B is the presentation of proclamation in honor of National Library Week, April the 8th through the 15th, 2017. Marjo?
Her favorite time of year.
I know.
Yes, it is. Good after evening almost. It's hard to pick one when it's still daylight. I am so proud to be able to present our Library Board of Trustees. We have our President, Elizabeth Lorenzen. Our Secretary, Judy Grant. Our members, Dr. Stillman. And our other member, Diana Lohr. And Dixie Smith.
Cookie Queen.
Yes, our cookie queen. She's the one who does the angel tea cookies, so we treat her right. Yes. And Dixie Smith can't make it this evening. She's ill. But we love her. She's the head of our Friends, and she's just a terrific person.
Let's give her a big round, too.
Yeah. And these people put in a ton of time.
All right, very good. We have a proclamation for you, and I'll read that, in honor of National Library Week. Whereas libraries are not just about what we have for people, but what we do for and with people. Whereas libraries have long served as trusted and treasured institutions, and library workers and librarians fuel efforts to better their communities, campuses, and schools. Whereas librarians are evolving in order to serve their communities and to continue to fulfill their role in leveling the playing field for all who seek information and access to technologies. Whereas libraries and librarians open up a world of possibilities through innovative programming such as the LAMS vehicle, free one-on-one assistance for adults who would like to improve their English language reading skills, classes for basic computer skills, job-seeking resources, and exploration of the power of reading. Whereas libraries and librarians are looking beyond their traditional roles and providing more opportunities for community engagement and deliver new services that connect closely with patrons' needs. Whereas libraries support democracy and affect social change through their commitment to providing equitable access to information for all library users, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic status. Whereas libraries, librarians, library workers, and supporters across America are celebrating National Library Week, now therefore be it resolved that I, Sam Couchman, Mayor of the City of Brawley, California, proclaim National Library Week as April 8th through the 15th of 2017 here in Brawley. I encourage all residents to visit the library this week and explore what's new at your library and engage with your librarian. Because of you, libraries transform.
Photo opportunity.
I'd like to come down.
No, go ahead, Mr. Mayor, I think you should lead.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
You can do the honors.
I'll present this to Marjorie. Let's go over here and we'll take a picture.
You don't, you're the board rep.
Yes.
Sure. I will.
Yeah, we're gonna turn around.
I'm ready. I got this in front of me, so I'm good.
I see you.
I can't see Mrs. Lord.
Now
a little bit.
Not that I want to.
Yes,
Big smile.
he's a good picture taker, yes.
Maybe he was getting. Congratulations,
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
See you next week. Yes.
Yes, our board meeting. I also would just like to let people know that Thursday evening at 6, we have a program in cooperation with the police department. We have Officer Anaya, Amaya, sorry, I knew I was going to mess that one up, coming to talk about, we have a book we're all reading called Girl Waits with a Gun. But she's going to come talk about being a female in law enforcement. So we're excited about that Thursday at 6. And right now, we have a 3D printer in the library, and people are having fun making all kinds of things. This afternoon, somebody made a holder to put their, stand their iPhone in, their phone. They've made cup holder things that you can hook on a can to drink to keep your stuff cold and your hands warm, and all kinds of really neat stuff going on at the library. So thank you again for the wonderful proclamation, and also your support of the library. So
Always.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marjorie. Okay, moving on to item number 3 of the consent agenda. Items are approved in one motion. Council members or members of the public may request consent items be considered separately at a time determined by the mayor. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comment from the public? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Consent agenda approved. Okay, and now we will go to number 4, which is a public hearing. And 4A is discussion and potential action to approve a tentative tract map and zone change for the Palm River subdivision. Mr. Gast.
Thank you, Mayor Couchman. Good evening, council members. Gordon Gase, Planning Director. I don't know if this presentation really helped because everything was portrait and everything's landscape here, but you do have these in your package.
Okay.
And when we get to the actual map, I actually have some 11 by 17s if you need to take a closer look at it or if the public would like copies of those. I said this is the area that was on River Drive and Palm, the northwest corner of River Drive and Palm, North Palm, where we had previous discussions on a mobile home park that was eventually denied. Back in 2003, this was initially entitled for single-family lots. There was about 100 of them, and now the developer is proposing a mix of the single-family lots and R2 zoning, which allows for zero lot line lots. And there'll be a total of approximately 130 of those total for the entire property. Here's the map. Like I said, if you need to see a little bit closer, I've got some 11 by 17s here, or for anybody who would like one. Essentially, on the eastern part of the property, you have the R2 zero lot line lots. These are, in this subdivision, they're at least 4,500 square feet big. They're actually allowed to be as small as 3,000, so they're well above the minimum requirements on the zero lot lines. And all the single-family lots, which have minimum 6,000, are at least that or above also. And then the other component of the project is the retention basin on the north side, which is required for the drainage. So looking at it, just by what you see is what portion is R2 and what portion is R1. You see that this is the attachment of the ordinance. This is not a general plan amendment, as R2 is considered low-density residential. It's only a zone change. And this map, I know it's not in your package, but this is just a tentative phasing of what they were thinking about, working their way basically from the south to the north. As they do so, the conditions require that they build their portion of Palm Avenue up and then also develop the retention basin proportionally with each phase. And like I said, this is actually there's going to have a homeowners association, which is going to take care of the retention basin. It'll be a private retention basin. And our minimum requirements per what we can establish by our ordinance is that retention basins need to have erosion control and they need to have dust control. So what we've always required is a minimum, if they're private, is basically the weed fabric with rock to, keep any dust down when it's dry, and when it's wet to keep the erosion that happens on the slopes. Because I've seen some retention basins, but actually one where I live, when it rains really hard, you'll get little arroyos going in there and little ravines, and it's actually even washed out the sidewalk. So you want to stabilize the soil so that the water flows down into the basin properly. That area does not count as parkland, so they will be paying Quimby fees also. And Quimby fees are fees in lieu of dedicating parkland, and so that money can be used to improve, usually they use it to improve the nearest park.
And where is the nearest park?
I believe Alistair would be the nearest park.
How many blocks away is that?
Approximately 4, I think.
4 blocks?
Yeah. From the closest portion, probably, right.
The whole pier next to the
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, if you, there'll be different variety of products. If you have specific questions, I believe the developer can show you what type of housing they're projecting there, but I believe the lowest one at the zero lot lines would start probably around 170, and they can go all the way up into the, $300,000-$400,000 range for some of the single family lots. And I believe the developer has some elevations if you'd just like to see them.
I guess we can open the public hearing, and if there's any comments from the council or questions from the council, would you prefer to?
Is that, and then we might hear from the builder after?
Yes, I would think. We can, whatever.
I had a question for our planning director.
Sure.
Gordon. With respect to the planning commission's recommendation, I did see that they approved or recommending for approval. Did they have any concern with the proposed plan development? Did they have any concern with respect to any element of the development?
There really wasn't any when they once this became a different project from the last time. They really didn't have any concerns. We had one person there for public comment, and after we explained the change that was happening, and I believe it was Mr. Perez who attended several of the meetings before Planning Commission and council meetings when it was proposed as a mobile home park. I think he was pretty satisfied with the new result and the type of project that would be in their neighborhood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd like to, I think, you have a question?
No. He was happy when I spoke to him that he was much happier with this than ever has been. He said this would be much better, family-wise and housing-wise. He approved of it, so that was good.
Okay. Any other council member comments or questions? If not, I'm gonna ask for the public, I think, to come up and if they have any concerns, and then the developer can come up, and then if we have any questions for him, I think we can do that. So is there any members of the public that would like to speak on this issue? Please come up to the microphone, state your name.
Gracie Fernandez. I wasn't really prepared to speak. As you know, in the past, I was a proponent for stick houses here, so I am happy about that. However, which park is the one that's the closest to this? Is this the one by Oakley School?
Yes, right behind.
That's not sufficient. That park hasn't been in use for a year. I haven't been able to use it. When it was available for use, it was already to capacity. So you're going to add all these people for a park that's already at capacity. They have enough land there to put their own park or a gym or something. That's not right. I don't think this fee is going to be able to pay for any improvements, or you're not going to be able to add any land. That's for sure, and that's what you need. You need another park. And I haven't heard anything about the sizes of these houses. I see these puny little postage stamp lots, but what's the size of the house that's gonna go on them?
He said the developer.
Any other comments from public? Please step up.
Bill Gallegos, 1439 River Drive. Question is, now is this tentative map and all the requirements are still the same as were proposed to the Planning Commission and approved by the Planning Commission? Has anything changed?
My understanding is there's not been any changes, but I mean, Gordon can probably speak to that. I don't think there has been.
No. These are the ones with.
Okay. Now, the other question is, now, I understand that the water supply and the fire line is going to be attached to the main line that goes up to the meat processing place. Is that correct?
I believe we had a fire flow study done there.
Come on, let me come on up, Chuck, if you could talk a little bit.
Check, maybe.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Chuck Burrows, the fire chief. The main line that supplies the One World Beef comes down Eastern Avenue, Northeastern Avenue. The fire line that this development will be tapping into runs down River.
Okay.
Okay,
that's
so it's
the
not
line
the
down
same.
River.
Okay, was there a fire flow test done on that?
Yeah, I talked to the fire marshal. Yes, there was.
And do you know what the residue pressure was?
It was higher than most parts of the city.
Well, I realize that, but do you know what the number is?
I don't know.
I don't have the correct numbers at this time.
Is it higher than 35 PSI?
I believe it was.
No, you didn't.
Well, as long as it's higher than 35 PSI, you would be fine. Okay, thank you.
We can supply you with that information, Mr. Gallegos.
Now, we do have a concern, and I understand that, there isn't sufficient property because of backyards for the kids to be playing in these residents. So I did approach the developer and I asked him that maybe you could get your permission to allow them to use the retention basin as a playground, because the majority of the time it's not going to rain here, of course, and so, but it has to be maintained and grass. Now, it's been allowed in other areas where they allow them to use it with a 1-to-5 slope, a general slope, and so that might help with the park situation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you, Rosanna, explain about the new park that's being built and what the size is, just for Ms.?
Sure. So generally speaking, the city exceeds the requirements of our open space element, our parks requirements citywide. However, one of the reasons that Alice Giroux was very competitive as a project at the state level is because the northeast quadrant of the city generally hasn't been the beneficiary of a great number of parks like you find in other quadrants of the city. So the reason we were competitive at obtaining the state award of funds for in excess of $2 million was because there are a lot of housing units in the northeastern quadrant that could be the beneficiary of the park upgrades. We are expecting within the next 30 to 60 days for the Alice Giroux Park improvement project to be complete, at which time it will become a premier park facility with a splash pad and a set of amenities that are really going to make it very distinct among our many park facilities citywide.
Thank you.
Is there any additional comments from the public? Anybody else?
Just a clarifying comment, with respect to the suggestion by Mr. Gallegos with respect to the retention area to be used for recreation, is that a possibility?
Sure, but it's a privately owned retention basin. It's going to be a homeowners association, and it can be up if they, when they get together, they can decide if they want to put amenities in there. Sure.
One other item that may be helpful for the council to know, there have been a number of inquiries relative to the retention basin in advance of tonight's public hearing. Our legal counsel will be available to answer any questions. There are not park standards that we can impose on the retention basin, but the council may have the ability in some ways to negotiate, because your zone change, you're making a decision about a requested zone change. So you have an unusual, it's not a guarantee that the outcome will be approval, but you could use that topic as a mechanism for dialogue with the developer.
I'd like to, when we get the opportunity.
We'll talk to the
Talk to the
developer in a
developer.
moment. But Any other comments from members of the public? If not, then I'll ask the developer to come forward.
Mr. Goyal, if we could have you at that side, thank you very much.
That way you're on camera.
Good evening, council member and the city staff. Thank you so much for giving the opportunity to be here at the podium. And I would love to answer each and every question. First thing is, when our project was rejected like a couple of years ago, we were thinking what to do. And as a resident of Brawley for more than 20 years, I was thinking what Brawley needs. Okay, there are several housing projects have been approved, which are in the different phases, maybe in the construction or in development. But there is no project in Brawley which is specifically made for where the housing could be USDA affordable. Okay, luckily El Centro and Imperial are still qualified for USDA. Mr. Nava has been part of the loan process, and he knows that USDA is very important for city of Brawley citizens because of the zero down payment requirement. And last time I checked, there are like about more than 30 people who are qualified for USDA, but there's no housing available for them. Couple of developers are making those homes like one or two at a time, but more people are getting qualified for USDA loans. Right now, generally people or USDA gets up to $220,000. So when you are developing the project, means it was very much easier for us to just go the R1, maybe about 110 homes, and 6,000 square foot typical lot, no need to spend the money on rezoning and be here and just build those homes. But questions was, can we afford as a developer to build those homes below 220 for USDA loan? So then we started about this R2, or like a zero lot line project, which was a very, very successful in Imperial, in the Springfield area, very successful. And those lots were only 3,500 square feet. City of Brawley has requirement only for 3,000, but we didn't want it to just build a shack. We want to build a house where people can call them home. So we started working on it, and so the lots are 4,800 square feet, the R2 lots, very close to 48, and the R1s are 6,000 square feet. So 4,800 square feet is a very big size lot. I mean, there are hundreds of homes in Calexico which are R1 lots are about 4,000 or 4,500. And with the zero lot line, so with the one wall being shared, there will be enough room in the back, just like Mr. Gagos asked, there will be enough room in the back to put your pool or put a patio, okay, and for the family. Okay, and the way we design it, right now we are planning about 1,400 square feet, 1,450 square feet for R2 lot, and our price range will be very close to almost 200,000 or 220, which is the USDA limit. Gordon mentioned about making $300,000 to $400,000 homes. We had no plans to make $300,000 and $400,000 homes in this neighborhood. Okay, no idea, or no plans at all. Our idea is that right now the FHA limit for this year is $285,000. So maximum home which we plan to make in this neighborhood is right now qualifies up to maximum limit of FHA, which is 285. But we don't even plan to go that many homes in this neighborhood. So our idea would be, depending on the cost, and of course, who knows what happens to the economy, but keeping R2 very close to 220 and R1s maybe about 250 to 260, okay, and not making big homes, because that's not what that area can support. So we really want to have the affordable housing, or it's not affordable, it's like low, it's not low income housing, it's affordable where person can have the payment of $1,200 to $1,300, so rather than paying the rent, they can live in the house, in their own house. The concept, yes, this is one shared wall in certain homes, but really means we manage so many rental properties in Imperial and never had any problem with those, the noise problem or nothing. You still have your own garage, you have your own access, and here, this is the one of the concept plan, means anybody can see it here. It's a single story R1, and this is 1,569 square feet, so 4 bedroom, 2 bath, okay. And this is R2, which is a 1,450 square feet, with a 431 square feet garage. Generally, garage is 400 square feet, but we are trying to make it as big as possible, okay? So there's enough room in the back, like I said, for putting the pool or patio.
That's one house right there?
And this is 2, right here. So if you see this 1 and 2 are 2.
The double.
They share a common.
They share this one common
Yeah,
wall.
they have some in Imperial.
Exactly. And those are built only on 3,500 square foot lots. And those homes, there are 2 floor plans only. One is 1,033 and another 1,333. So even from, so these are much bigger than those which are shown in Imperial. Okay.
Can you show us?
Let them see.
My daughter owns one of those in Imperial. I know Marissa.
As for the water line, the water pressure was concerned, before coming here, there was a water test done by the fire department. And he said, I don't have the report, but I think I forwarded the report to Gordon, that the pressure was, I believe, pretty close to 45. It says this is much higher than most of the city has. So for the plans, we will be building a water line along Palm Avenue also, because for the water, we have to make a loop for the fire hydrant. So we don't expect any water pressure problem. And everything will be done per the city codes. And we do have the idea, means we'll talk to the city staff for using the retention basin as a park. Okay, that is an idea. Of course, there are 132 homes, so we talk to those HOA means people. HOA, we are expecting somewhere about $25 to $30 a month. It's not like $200-300 a month, just for the park maintenance, because street will be the city streets, so just for the park. So that's the idea.
So what do you anticipate the HOA fees?
About $25 to $30 a month, somewhere there.
That's your HOA.
HOA.
Yeah, that's good.
Very low.
Yeah, very low just to maintain, because it's for non-profit and just for maintaining the park. And so if there are like 150 homes, so you're looking for $3,000, $4,000 per month, $50,000 just to maintain a park at the full, when it's developed full.
Sure.
Yeah.
When it's fully developed.
Yes.
Mr. Goyle, maybe ask a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
You're also involved in property management, I think, right, throughout, I don't know if it's throughout the valley or
Yes, sir.
certainly, you know, the Brawley market pretty well. You mentioned the rental income. Just for the public's benefit as well as mine, my understanding is just the inventory is actually very challenging supply and demand for folks that are actually in the rental market. And those that can actually find a home even to rent that's affordable, can be a challenge, not just here in Brawley, but obviously around the valley. So I guess with that, is that true? And I can see this being, bring a lot more inventory for those that are in that price point, for families that are looking for something in that range.
Exactly. Our office is managing very close to about 292 rental units, including commercial, okay? And we have very, very few homes available for rent. People are looking for houses, and we have few apartments available. So you see, most of the people are looking, they want to rent house, okay? And these are the people who can afford $1,100 to $1,200 payment. So depending on the interest rate and right now, and how much the credit, there are multiple issues. But $220,000 USDA payment comes very close to $1,150. So 3 bedroom, 2 bath, $1,150 rent. And if the same home, I can easily rent brand new home for $1,250. So there are so many 3 bedroom, I'll answer in a second. Okay. Go ahead. So 3 bedroom, 2 bath homes with the 2-car garage on the Jones 971 Jones, we are fixing it. And 3 bedroom, 2 bath for $1,250. And it should be rented by Friday. And for this same home, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, that's not a brand new home, this is a brand new home. We are looking for payment probably very close to $1,200. So it will be very close to, rather than renting, you can own a house and get the tax benefit also. Yes, ma'am. Can I answer your question?
When you say 1150, that doesn't include insurance and?
Everything.
It includes everything?
Yes, all. PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Very close to about $220,000, 4.5% interest rate. The payment comes out very close to 1150.
And just for clarification, the way USDA loans work, what Mr. Goyle is referring to, it's just amortized over an extended period of time, a longer period than a traditional mortgage. So that's part of the reason.
That's why there's a
the
difference, I
payments,
think.
the payment's lower, right?
Because my experience has been for about a $200,000 loan, about over $1,400.
It also depends on the, of course, for how many years you're taking. So we're talking about 30 years. And certain places in El Centro or mainly in Imperial, there are CFDs, so that can add up. And the interest rate, because right now, like today is about 4.5, but it never knows a 4.25 or 4.75. But I'm talking in general, okay? And the rents are keep going up and up every year, and with the minimum wages keep going up, we expect the rents to go up like almost 2 to 3%, 4% per year. So on our office, landlords are asking us to get more rents. So 3% is the average increase in the rent right now. So like $1,100 rent right now, we $1,130 next year, pretty close. So if a person and USD is not that big of a requirement, like less than $85,000, family of 4, and Mr. Nava can tell much more about it, being a loan officer. It's very easy, and Brawley is lucky to have the USDA approval. Yes.
Absolutely, and I guess just to finalize my point, it's difficult to find that price point, especially in new construction.
That is correct, and so there are multiple homes being developed. Sedona homes, I think their minimum is 280, 290. We are working the Ridge Park. We are looking for almost 297, and there are more homes coming on Malane Street, okay, and they are also looking for almost 270, 280. One on Florentine, they have the higher C with the HOA, and those homes are like also 240 and 250, plus there is no backyard and only like a half driveway right there. So those homes, they are single family homes, that's correct, but their payments are almost $1,500 because of the HOA.
Can I ask one clarifying question? Mr. Goyal, prior to the comments here that were shared here earlier with respect to the retention basin, had you considered making that a recreation area, a park area?
Yes, sir. We did, and we, like I said, at the end of the day, it will always come to the HOA. So what in the starting we do plan to have, in the first phase, if you see on the southeast or right here, the corner of the Palm River, there is a retention basin for a small one that is only for the phase 1. So we will making that one during the phase 1, and then we'll putting on the retention basin. We will need the dirt also for making the pads. So yes, we do plan, and I have visited lots of retention basin in Calexico, El Centro, and they are being used. And since it hardly rains, so rather than putting the money on the rock, we would love to see people using like a half baseball court, and there's like a dodgeball, and like multiple things are happening these days. So yes, we do have those plans. And again, it will end at the end of the day, it will be based on the homeowners. But when we propose them for another $10 to $15 a month, we can have our small activities. I don't think anybody will say no.
Right, I understand. But I do understand the concern with respect to increasing the number of residents in the area, and then there only be really one park that services that quadrant. So I understand that. Yeah,
but we do definitely have the plans to use it as some activity, some recreation area.
I think I would encourage that also. I think the park usage would be better. I think rock is going to be a little bit of a hazard, I think, in that area. You're going to have a lot of children in that area probably playing, and children tend to throw rocks. And so I think you might have some issues with that. So I would prefer you looking at it maybe more as a multi-use area or some type of park area. It doesn't have to all be grass. I know that there's a cost to that contributes, but I think if there were some courts or some type of situation there where people could get together, I think that would be kind of a neat idea. And maybe not necessarily just a complete retention basin with rock and kind of not very attractive. I mean, maybe something a little bit more attractive.
Definitely, we understand. Like I said,
a selling point for
I 100% agree with you. And like I said, we do have the plans to use as much possibilities as recreation as we can.
Okay.
visitor parking, is that pretty good, or?
No, actually, this, because this is the regular wide street, so just like in any street for R1, so this does not reduce the number of parking on the street. Plus, there is a 2-car garage and the 2 full parking on the driveway. So you have like a four vehicles, and then there's like any street in any development, there's enough parking along the street. Yeah, so I don't see any parking issue.
I think that was a concern in the past with.
For the RV
good-
park.
With good parking, and I think this solves that problem.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Goy, I see the tentative phasing. What is really Upstart, if this were to move forward, is obviously you're starting with phase 1, so right there on River, is that looks to me like it's not the R2, that's the R1.
That's correct.
Is that where you're?
We will start with R1. We are planning to get in the construction by end of the year. Right now it's first week of April, and then from here means we need to submit the plans to the city, get our bonds together. So first phase we like to start like end of the year.
And it looks like 15 units or?
13. 13 along the phase 1, and then we'll jump on the phase 2. So somewhere middle to end of next year, we like to go on the phase 2. And it's a possibility that depending on what people are asking, how the economy is doing, so we may jump phase 1 and then immediately phase 2, okay, depending on the success of other projects too. And then just keep going. And even like on phase 2, if you see it, the south side is R1 and north side is R2. So it's a strong possibility that right after phase 1, we just go on the north side of the street for phase 2. So making R2s. So all depends on the demand and supply, but we are already getting the inquiries about R2s.
Any other questions from the council? Any questions from the public for Mr. Goya?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Go ahead, come up.
Okay, Bill Gallegos, 1439 River Drive. You know, the detention basin is if he just puts grass and sprinklers on there, it's extremely cheap. And, but the developer is required to provide, you know, the water supply and recreation. He can't expect the residents to take over that burden because he's building a new facility. He has to provide that. And my solution to the retention basin, no rock, just grass and sprinklers, and he cut it and maintain it. I think it's a cheap way out for him. Either that, or you require him to provide sufficient funds to the city to provide additional park use as the law requires it. Thank you.
Gordon?
So
Go ahead.
I'd love to answer this question. Actually, we would love to see city take over the HOA. Means love to do that thing, okay, and then charge $20-25 to the property taxes, and then maintain it. It would be amazing, okay, and we highly would love to see that thing. But we were told that since less than 50 acres, the city is not interested. But in reality, if city would do that, we are for it.
If this were an option that was going to be dedicated to the city, then we would need a funding mechanism too, so we would have to have a CFD.
Right.
Understood.
And it becomes a public park.
But Gordon, in my understanding, it doesn't meet whatever the specifications would be for those type of public land or public use, correct?
Well, if it were to become a park, Parks and Rec would dictate basically what they would want as the recreation, but since it's a private facility, we can only minimally establish what, needs to be done for, like I said, erosion and dust control, and the HOA will decide how to, and remember, they can make this private. They don't have to let anybody else in. They can put a fence around it and say, this is only for the residents, since they're the only ones paying for it. But again, going back to Mr. Gallegos' question, they are paying fees in lieu of dedication.
Right.
Because the city, we have enough park land, and to have another park, then we need more people, and the only way to fund that would be through a CFD, which I know has not been the most popular thing recently.
Well, I have a comment. With respect to the staff recommendation, the Brawley Planning Commission did recommend approval with multiple conditions, and there's a list starting on page 46 of the backup material, and it goes from 1 to about 29. But there is a section in section 28 The perimeter landscape areas and retention basin shall be maintained by either a CFD or HOA. The method shall be determined by city council. So, would it be appropriate if we were to make a notation in that condition to add, to require
The retention basin.
be used
An
as
HOA,
a-
yes.
Right? as a
Right, the
park
reason we
facility?
left that open because we didn't know what direction you wanted to go and if you were gonna possibly be open to a CFD. So it was left open for the council to either go the HOA way or the CFD.
And I wouldn't necessarily be interested in the CFD,
I don't think any of us are interested in a CFD.
but, so we could, maybe I should ask our city attorney, with respect to making it a requisite of this approval, could we add the item that the retention basin area would be used as a park facility?
You could, but you would have to make, if you're not gonna require the creation of a CFD, you'd have to make it contingent on HOA approval, because it's their money
Okay.
that's gonna be spent to maintain it. The city's not gonna, it's not gonna be dedicated to the city's not gonna maintain
Right.
it.
So park
Pay the
pending,
irrigation, the lawn mowing and whatnot.
park pending HOA approval? Would that be?
Right.
I think that's okay.
Or park use contingent on HOA approval.
Park use contingent.
One other item of note, you might make reference to in item 28, and landscaped retention basin shall be maintained. Because as it is currently stated, it isn't necessarily landscaped.
Yeah, but I think that's
To
a
our
definition of
extent, landscaping, for us, includes xeriscaping,
yeah.
which is
Xeriscaping
weed fabric and
is-
rock
is
also.
landscaping, I mean, so.
Either way,
it's a-
they can't have an open dirt hole there,
Right,
is what it is.
right. Whether they use rock or whether they use ornamental
Correct.
foliage or whether they use some
Grass.
type of ground cover
Correct.
or whether they use grass, it's gotta be,
Yeah.
there's gotta be something
You know,
there.
I don't know, maybe it's not as much of a problem in Brawley, but I know in Imperial, they've tried grass a lot on these, and the soil just does not take it, and it ends up being dirt.
We have good soil.
So that's what, exactly, the thing is, you need to check first, or you might have to import some good soil to keep, but maybe at least a portion of it to where it stays green.
Understood.
Because they started out that way, and that's not what they look like anymore. All right, I mean, we get 3
Because they're
inches
not
of
taken
rain,
care
you know,
of.
you know. And then with the, well, the thing is, with the water restrictions, you can only water it so
Yes.
much nowadays too, so.
Let's
you
work
need-
on the wording real quick. How would that be?
We're gonna have to work on the word.
Yeah,
To build it.
Mr. Goyle, would you be in consideration on the landscaping side of it as well? I'm sure there's, to me, I know landscaping can be extremely expensive, at the same time, it could be reasonable, going with certain, trees and shrubs and whatnot, but is that something else that could be considered?
So answer to your question is, first thing is, I know city does not like CFD, but in reality, it's only $30 a month. Okay, so all the homes, we are looking for about $25 to $30 a month, so which are looking about like $4,000 a month collecting from all the homes, which is $50,000 a year, which is good enough money for city staff to maintain it, because it's much easier for HOA to because HOA maintenance for $30 is not easy. But in case of city does not allow the CFD, okay, and we are very much interested, and we are requesting city to consider our request for CFD. But in case if they do not, then just like city attorney said, then it is not up to me as a developer or my group that what landscaping we can have, but since it's private, so yes, we'll meet the minimum requirement. We would really like to have as much trees, grass, and the play area. But all depends, means if there's like a $10,000 more required, okay, you know what, $10,000 per year is $1,000 per month, which is $10 per houses, or $8 per houses. It has to be approved by about 60%, I think, the state requirement is. So we have to make sure that everybody's approving $10 per month more, okay? So it all depends on being the private land, but once it gets to the city land, then city can do whatever they like and charge city, residents with the CFD.
Just including the land.
There's some language, if we could, in collaboration here with our city manager and our city attorney, with respect to condition 28 that's listed here, where it says the perimeter landscape areas and retention basin shall be, and if we could add improved for private recreational purposes contingent on HOA approval. And I think that would be the addition of the comment there.
I don't see any problem with that thing with HOA approval. Is there any possibility city consider making a CFD there? Okay.
I don't think there's an appetite for.
No, just understand, but we are looking for.
And we don't have an appetite for it.
I understand that. Yeah, the past bad history, completely understand, but we are looking for only like $30 a month, $25, $30. But I understand that.
Not for, I don't think for this level of
It would
housing.
actually be more, because if you're doing a CFD, we have to be equitable with the other CFDs, which includes police and fire services.
Yes, and I
It
don't,
would be more than $30.
I mean, I can't speak for the whole council, but I don't see us doing that. We've had some issues with that in the past. And I also think that it puts a lot of burden on that homeowner, individual homeowner. These are going to be lower level homes. It's going to be even more of a burden for those individuals. So
Okay.
as a council member here, I don't think I would be in favor.
No problem. And like I said, we are prepared to have the HOA and meet the requirement of city. And if they decide no water, and by that time it's a possibility. This year, luckily, we did not have the drought, but after 5 years, so they said there's no more landscaping. Then now city is going to say, hey, you cannot have the water. This time, what we need is just the fabric and the rock. So all depends on the future also, which I have no control, yeah.
So we want to add that statement.
I would like to, if that helps protect the fact that the retention basin would be used for recreational purposes. I would like to add the language.
It's subject to the approval of the HOA, which means the
Some
residents
form of
themselves must
greenscape
approve
or-
It would
that.
have to be the residents that will make that determination.
Yes.
And them having children, I would assume that they would agree with that.
Maybe.
Yeah, it will all come to the cost. Because how many people are, how many people are staying there?
Are we
Yeah.
able to proceed with the first reading with that,
With that
change it? Okay.
addition. Okay.
Any other question I can answer?
Any other questions from the
No.
council?
Thank
Mr.
you.
Goya? No. Any other comments from the public? Want to make sure I give everybody an opportunity to come to speak. All right. If there are, oh.
I'm sorry to belabor this, but how is this project different than when you build a condominium project? It's brand new, nothing sold, and yet all the landscaping, the pools, the clubhouses, everything is put in, and when you buy the unit, when you buy the house, the townhome, you know what the HOA fees are going to be and what they're going to cover. So why can't he do that? Why does the HOA have to approve it? How is it different?
I believe we're making it a condition.
I don't know the answer to that, honestly. I don't know who
It's a
does.
condo, the condo is completely different, so we can have CCNR and all those things. The condos are completely different kind of project. It is a different requirement for condo approval from the state, Department of Real Estate. So they are like two different kind project, okay? The ownership or there, because in the condo, like I said, this is like common area, and generally like a pool and all those things are common area maintenance. So like HOA, and here is kind of HOA, but only for retention basin. Yes. So they are not really comparable.
So in essence, if the HOA, once the tenants or the owners move in, if they decide they don't want to maintain the retention basin as a park, it'll be their decision?
No, so what happens is, when they are buying the property, they will be notified in the writing, and there will be like HOA document which we need to get the approval from the Department of Real Estate, like a Bureau of Real Estate. So creating HOA is not that easy, so it's a long process. And they will be given a copy up front that there is an HOA, and the HOA maintains only the pool, or the park area, or retention basin. And the estimated cost will be like $25, okay? I'm just estimating based on certain areas. And so they are aware of it. Now, once there are like more than 50% people, and I think they require that when 20 or 30% homes are sold, then the developer maintains the HOA. After that, all the decisions made by the homeowners. So then there's like an annual election for the president, vice president, and treasurer, and then there's a notices given to all the people who are part of HOA. And then they vote, and they decide, okay, do you want to increase the HOA? Do you want, okay. They may want to put like a gold-plated certain things, and everybody approves 60-40, I believe, then it can go. And if some people just done it, like every single HOA is for sure that not 100% people pay. Then the HOA puts a lien on the property, just like the CFD. Okay, this is standard. But you are looking for like $30 per month, so like $360 per year. So even after 2-3 years, if somebody doesn't pay, then you're looking for almost like $1,000 or $1,500 lien on the property. So whenever they sell the property, it either gets negotiated with the HOA or they have to pay. This is very standard for all the CFD and HOA.
Thank you.
After the HOA grows and they have an elected board there, they can decide within themselves, based on a vote count of the population that owns a residence, and they could add additional items, features, and that sort of thing. So it would be, it likely would result in a higher payment for everybody, but if they were to vote to add additional amenities, they could do that, so.
Okay.
I'm sorry, one more thing, just like we maintain a lot of the townhouses and several locations, and they have increased like from $125 one location to like $245 a month on the 4th Street, and because they were need, okay. And one more question I forgot to answer about HOA. Those condo projects, the HOA maintains and they are responsible for the outside 4 walls. So the HOA does cover the insurance for outside 4 walls. The person who buys those condos, they are just paying for the insurance from inside. But there's no such thing here. Everybody is a single family, your own resident, and you buy your own insurance. Yes.
Okay, it goes again. If you require him to put grass on the detention basins and maintain it, the homeowners association or whatever association you get in will be required to do the same. So the city can impose that requirement. Then instead of rock, we want grass and sprinklers. And they have to maintain it if they want to live there. So it's just a requirement that the city has to put. It's not HOA that puts it. You can put it. Just like the building standard. The city and the state puts those standards, and it has to be built to that standard. Same thing. You can require a stringent standard and require that it's grass with sprinklers on it, and the HOA is going to have to maintain it. Now, if you don't put that requirement, you're just going to have a pile of grass, weeds, and down there anyway. And the kids are going to play there anyway, because they have no other place to play, so they'll have to play there. So you might as well make them a requirement. Thank you.
I would like to answer to Mr. Gallegos. Love to see those requirements. Like I mentioned, it is not up to me. It's all depending on the homeowners. But please remember about the grass. City is promoting xeriscape. All the homes which you are going to build, there will be no upfront grass by us. So we have no plans to put outside grass. Because this year, luckily, we got the rain. But California is and whole southern region here, we are 30 years in drought. So a year or 2 or 3, we'll get the requirement, or you cannot have the grass and all landscaping. So all the landscaping we are going to have on these ones, but the new city requirement, there has to be like a drip irrigation and no like a sprinkler system. So to save the money now, if you make a requirement that it has to be the sprinkler system, now it is done per the code. And now if city said, no, you cannot have the grass there, then HOA can come to the city and say, okay, you asked us to put the sprinkler, now you're asking us to put the rocks. Okay, remove the grass, is an expense there. So let HOA decide, the homeowners, okay, because this is the privately owned park.
Gordon?
I was just going to mention, that there is some truth that the state actually, now there's only certain kinds of sprinklers you can use. And you can't install brand new of those little sprinklers anymore. They all have to be a certain type. So grass is limited, especially this area where you need a lot of irrigation to keep your grass green.
And I have seen, in my own experience, I have seen retention basins used for park space, but it's usually very limited, where you would have the grass area and maybe a half court or something like that, and then the rest would be xeriscape or something like that.
Right,
so.
yeah, usually they'll have, like, maybe around the playground area, they'll have like a little different shape, depends on, who designs it, shaped grass area, and then some of that kind of like that rubberized area for the kids to play on in the
Right.
playground, things like that. So, having all grass, I'm sorry, those days are just over for us here in California. It's just not, it's not viable and sustainable for the amount of water that it needs for an area that only gets 3 inches of rain a year. That it just doesn't work anymore. And most people, and you see the IED is giving money for people to change over their grass to xeriscaping.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you.
want to close the public?
I'd like to close the public hearing at this point in time, and then we will discuss the action if the council so wishes. The action before us today is to approve the first reading of ordinance 2017, ordinance of the City Council of the City of Brawley, California, amending the Brawley Municipal Code to change the zoning designation for the specified property. And so I would listen to the council entertain a motion.
Well, Mr. Mayor, considering that the Planning Commission has approved the item, but also listening to the residents' concern, I would make a motion to approve the item with the change in condition 28 to read the perimeter landscape areas and retention basin shall be improved for private recreational purposes contingent on HOA approval. With that change, I would make a motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay. Any discussion? Okay. If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Now we'll move to item number 5, which is our general fund workshop.
Mayor Catchman and members of the council, I will be making a PowerPoint presentation here this evening, so I'll step down.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I believe there's a member of the public here who
Yes.
arrived for a 6 PM meeting and would like to make a public comment.
While you're preparing your presentation, I'll allow public comment, I think. Rusty?
Thank you, Mayor and City Council people,
Your name?
members. Well, my name is Rusty Garcia, 417 Allen, and I'm not here for Brawley Union High School except for on behalf of our athletic director, Billy Brewer, who was not able to be here. And this is in regards to the fireworks that we have been doing for years now. I know that there was a time that it was kind of banned and it kind of got going again. But anyway, and talking with Billy just a little bit ago, there's the gentleman that's in charge of this region here for TNT, which is the company. His name is Steve Bennett, and Steve is willing to come here before you and give different ideas as to how the high school could be part of the mix. Because my understanding, Billy's understanding, and according to Mr. Bennett, is that most all the high schools that in his region are kind of excluded from a lottery that you kind of have. So, but he can explain that more to you if you so wish, and we can maybe put it on the agenda for 2 weeks. He said he's more than willing to be here. So with that, if I know that it's not on the agenda for you to do anything, but I know there's several of you that have been noticed about the fireworks. So to your wishes, if that could be possible.
I think we're looking into that issue, and I think what I would like to do is have that item placed maybe on the next agenda. It will be 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
I think that would probably be best. We don't have it on the agenda for discussion.
Correct.
We are looking into some things, and we're talking to some people, so it may be necessary to have that done. It may be necessary to have a presentation. It may not, but we'll keep you informed.
Yeah, if you know, in a week's, say in a week, if you need him to be here, he could be here. Okay. And if not, well, so be it. He wouldn't have to come over, but.
Mr. Mayor, may not be necessary to place it on the agenda if we're able to.
We may be able to get it resolved without it being on the agenda, but just in case, what I'd like, if we don't get it resolved by the time of our next meeting, I'd like to have that on the agenda for discussion for the council. I think we've all been, well, everybody's been approached. I think there's been a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah,
there's a lot of fireworks.
Yes, a lot of
fireworks. There's a lot of fireworks? Okay, good, thanks.
But tell him to relax, take his
I'll tell you,
off.
Billy is, he's kind of
Billy
under the
is
weather.
having a procedure done,
and his son is also having a procedure done at the same time. So he asked that we keep him in our prayers for their procedures.
That's fine. So thank you very much. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call and I can forward it to Billy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rusty.
Okay, so general fund workshop.
Fun.
Good evening, Mayor and council members and community members here today. We are in the third of a series of meetings where staff and council and community are checking in about assumptions for next fiscal year, coming to understand projections from a revenue and expenditure point of view in the next fiscal year. Our new fiscal year begins July 1, 2017. And what we hope to do today is primarily build on requests that came out of our strategic planning session. Also on the data points that were a part of our mid-year budget review and acceptance of audited financial statements from the prior fiscal year. Okay, so tonight we have the best estimates as of today with regard to revenues and expenditures. We're looking for your feedback and always are available for questions. At this juncture, what I would like to point out is that we have a gap. And that gap, I'm going to go into some detail about what is included in that gap. But I think it's really, really important for staff and I to emphasize that to maintain the existing service levels at the city for our general fund cost centers, we have a shortfall of about $850,000. Every year, the cost of doing business as a city, just as in our households, unfortunately increases. And while we try our very best to lean the organization and look for cost savings, how to do things more efficiently, we still find it quite a challenge to work through variables that are outside of our control. Council was briefed in the last 90 days on a strategy to address the side fund that we have for CalPERS. And this is a very exciting opportunity to restructure some of our debt in a manner that honors the same term as our previous obligations, but takes advantage of lower interest rates. And so we hope that this transaction will conclude before the end of this fiscal year, and that beginning July 1 or somewhere very close to that date, that we'll have an opportunity as a city to save approximately $300,000 per year, $190,000 of which are in the general fund. That remainder of $110,000 is to be carried by our special and enterprise funds. But for the general fund, we don't yet have included in the projections because the transaction is not complete. But we anticipate a safe number for savings is estimated at $190,000. So we have a couple of kind of reminders or refreshers on a couple of variables that are part of our reality. We have, with next fiscal year, 2 remaining payments. These payments have to be made from the general fund to the regional board. This is our settlement agreement that comprised a total of $1 million. We have made timely payments since this was imposed on us, and next year's payment will result in 1 payment year remaining, and we look forward to being free from those obligations. We also want to note that our Joint Powers Insurance Authority, this is the provider of coverage for workman's comp, as well as property and liability insurance will have an increase of $169,256 to the general fund specifically. Other increases are borne by other funds, but that which can be attributed to the general fund cost center is about $169,000. We also have known changes that we've been put on notice for CalPERS. These are our pension obligations. We are expecting those costs to increase by $105,741. And I want to take a moment to point this out because I think it's one of those obligations for the city. It's part of the commitments to employees who are defined as classic. These are individuals who, before pension reform was implemented, they are the beneficiaries of a particular formula. And that formula resulted in changes that are really, really significant from a percentage point of view. For the public safety universe, we now have an obligation for 48%. Every dollar that is earned, 48 cents this fiscal year was required to cover the obligation. Next year, it will jump to 54 cents. So from 48% to 54%. For miscellaneous employees, that's anyone who is not public safety, that is a classic member, we're seeing an increase of 21% to about 24%. So that total comprises about $105,741. And we recognize as staff that service levels continue to rise. There's a desire to provide the highest possible level of service that we can to serve the community.
How many employees do we have?
Our total citywide is approximately 140, and for general funds specifically, if you turn to slide 10, we are proposing 115.8 employees that would be carried by the general fund. And I can go into a little bit of detail to show kind of the arc of general fund full-time staffing.
It's okay. I just wanted to divide that by 105,000, how many employees we had. For whatever reason, I had 85, and that came out to 1,244, and I thought, God, that's not right.
Because the pensions, based on the type of employee you are, if you're public safety, there's a retirement formula that is one sum. It's a 3% at 3% of pay for, and the ability to retire at 50. And for miscellaneous, it's 2% at 55. Those are the classic formulas.
Okay, thank you.
And then one other reminder, we have been very good as a local agency in establishing and living within the council-adopted general fund reserve preservation policy. And this policy was adopted about 4 years ago. And at that time, the intention was to save for a rainy day fund. That fund, we have been able to save in excess of that fund on an annual basis. But we've also used the funds in excess to program a very aggressive schedule of capital improvements, as well as provide a couple one-time patches for operational deficits that were structural in the budget, where the operational revenues did not exactly match the operational expenditures. So our reserve preservation policy calls for a 15% set aside of expenditures.
And how much do we have set aside currently?
I have a slide for you a little bit later, and in that slide we have reference, we are projecting at the close of this fiscal year, June 30, to have $2,477,841.
What percentage is that of the?
That is slightly in excess. The 15% set aside for the proposed budget is $2,347,120. So it's about 130 in excess. So what we've built into the cost estimates at this point for the budget are all of our MOU commitments, so those obligations that we have in the 3-year agreements that we've entered into with our 4 bargaining units. We have also assumed a hold on a number of staffing changes that we had hoped to implement, but have been unable to as a result of some concerns about the utility user tax and our ability to sustain the employment of the existing workforce. So I'm going to just take a moment to point out some of those. That includes the 404 plan for Fire Station Number 2. This was a plan to 50% staff Fire Station Number 2 with permanent employees. We placed that effort on ice last year due to a concern for the health of revenues, and it is again proposed this next fiscal year due to fiscal constraints that we not proceed with the hire of that 4th firefighter that would allow for 50% staffing of Fire Station Number 2. It is also assumed that the graffiti abatement worker and senior center coordinator would not be made permanent in the next fiscal year, that we, just like the firefighter positions, that we continue to staff that with temporary full-time personnel. Want to also note, you may recall prior to the departure of Chief Gilmore, we were the successful recipient of a Department of Justice grant award, which allowed us to partner with both Brawley Union High School and Brawley Elementary School District to bring on school resource officers for both of the districts. It's been a great program, but unfortunately, the grant will expire at mid-fiscal year. So come December of 2017, that grant will expire, and the school resource officers that are currently assigned, we're hoping to time with vacancies inside of the department to absorb them back into the operations, which in essence means the school districts will no longer have school resource officers unless we have success in future grant pursuits.
How many are we talking about there, Rosanna?
One individual is assigned to Brawley Union High School, and one individual assigned to Brawley Elementary School District. And it's been a really wonderful collaboration with our school sites. Also is assumed, as council and community are aware, we do have an announced retirement of our of our police chief. And what is proposed in the next fiscal year to bridge the gap in excess of $852,000 includes naming an interim and not proceeding with the hire of a chief.
Question.
Yes.
To go back to
Yes.
the resource officer. On that grant, who got that grant for us?
The city of Brawley obtained the grant. We wrote the grant, and we were the successful award recipient of the grant. We are in the process of seeking other opportunities, but it will be hard for us to compete because we are a recipient in the last round.
But we did such a good job.
From what I understand, there's an active pursuit underway, not only internal to the city, but also among our school partners.
Okay, good.
Okay, so again, what is proposed and factored in to what has resulted in an $852,000 gap is not proceeding with a permanent hire of the interim police chief, and instead bridging the next 12 months with the hire of an interim in-house. And then the other thing I wanted to be sure and point out.
How much savings do you project if we do that?
What will occur as a result of the bridge is someone in a commander position would be elevated to a chief, and an individual in a sergeant position would be elevated to a commander, and an individual who's an agent would be elevated on an interim basis, and it'll create a vacancy at the bottom that is estimated at approximately $100,000, fully burdened.
Thank you.
Those are already all assumed. Yeah. it's already assumed, so we still have the gap even with this bridge. Okay, and then the last point I would like to make, and we're going to go kind of dive a little bit deeper into the numbers in a couple of subsequent slides. We know that our utility user tax will expire in May of 2017, but what we've built into the assumptions tonight is
2018.
I'm sorry, 2018. Yes, I'm sorry, my apologies.
That's okay.
We are going to be 1 month short of a full fiscal year of revenues. We built the model around assuming 12 months. It is not at 11 months. If we were to account for the 12 months, we would be approximately 1.9 divided by 12 months, somewhere in the ballpark of 160,000 additionally short. So the gap, 852, add another 160. Okay.
A little over $1 million at that point.
Yes. Okay, so, and just as a reminder, as I've briefed with individual council members, I've had the question, how do we get here? How did we get from, where we were with a balanced budget to where we are today? Well, just as a quick refresher, last year we had this gap. We continue to be very resourceful and count on all departments to come forward with helping us to balance. We did use special law enforcement funds to backfill eligible expenses, and that sum was just shy of $256,000. And last year, we also utilized the general fund reserve to patch the gap between operational revenues and expenses to the tune of $269,000. And as referenced in previous slides, two of the biggest changes, please come on in, were in the areas of Joint Powers Insurance Authority premiums, as well as our CalPERS formula changes. So the numbers that were a part of the packet that you see referenced in bright orange, melon, salmon, okay. What is represented in those totals shows you a breakdown by cost center. And these are the way our budgets are set up and defined in our accounting system. And what we try to do with this slide is begin to show where the resources are allocated, how we function citywide with general fund support. So this leaves out special funds and enterprise funds, focuses on general fund cost centers, and also a couple of areas that are wholly grant supported, but the grant reimburses the general fund. So for instance, our LAMS bus, it actually isn't carried by the general fund, it's an award of funds that we receive. Engineering is a similar item. We front the expense in the general fund, and based on the allocations that we can assign to engineering, we work enterprise funds into refunding portions of the general fund. So are there any, one of the things that we try to do is show relative to this breakdown, where are the bulk of our resources going? And one thing we take really seriously in Brawley is public safety. And as we talk with council about various priorities, one of the mantras has been public safety is a given. It is really clear if you follow the resources for police and fire and you combine them together, you begin to see the majority of our general fund, 37% for PD, and then you add in the 19%, over half of our budget. We're showing what our priority is by devoting those dollars to public safety. And with this slide, I'm going to have, this slide was developed at the request of council out of strategic planning. There was a desire to see the most significant revenue types. And so we thought it would be helpful to see a 5-year perspective. And I will have our finance director, Ruby Walla, walk us through these assumptions.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Ruby Walla, Finance Director. from the strategic planning session when we discussed overall budget, revenues, and even further than that, discussing utility user tax and significant revenue sources of the general fund. Actually, Councilmember Nava, inquired what are other impacts, how have other revenues flowed and trended through the general fund through the last couple years. And, we tried to dig back actually further to the implementation of utility user tax. But as far as back as that goes, the way they were structured and reporting was was different to not give a lot of detail on historical data. So we went back the last 4 years, but what you'll see here is we've identified property taxes, VLF swap, which is driven off of property tax, sales taxes, and utility user tax. And those are the key funding sources, or the primary funding sources of the general fund, including other charges for services through other departments throughout the city. So you'll see in 2014, we had about, of those, 7.8 million, and roughly the general fund overall has about anywhere from 13 million to 15 million in general fund overall revenues, but this makes up 7.8 of that year after year, and of UC going into 2018 at 8.4. So you'll see that going with 2014, we're at 7.8, and you'll kind of see the swings there. Little growth in pretty much all categories with the exception of utility user tax. And that what we correlate is to one, national beef going away. And then we, again, and then the same impact you see with utility user tax still declining in 16, and what that is driven by a correlation between still impacts with no national beef at all, where they basically phased out completely, and then water conservation measures as well. So property taxes will go across, and you'll see that there was a slight trend, and we did highlight that last year significantly, especially at mid-year, where there was a bump. There was adjustments done to assessment values, and we took that into consideration moving into the 2017 budget. However, leaving it constant in 2018. Since there were already significant adjustments made, I don't find it to be overly optimistic. I feel like they're going to smooth out at this point. We do have some growth within the city of Brawley, which is slow growth, and so we may see some improvement, or we might be right on target. So that is my recommended value in speaking with city manager. For VLF swap, again, no change there, because it is a driving force of it's vehicle license fees swap. That's just a structure with the state, so it's driven off property tax as well, and so there I don't see any fluctuation as well. In that, sales tax, we have seen some trends and we've seen some improvement there for sales tax. However, we did have some shifts, and we have highlighted this especially in mid-year budget review, as well as the primary funding source for City of Brawley sales tax is fueling stations. That's what drives the City of Brawley's sales tax generation. So as gas prices go up, the city does a little bit better. As prices go down, of course, the city doesn't do so much better, but better for the consumer. And so what we do is we contract out with HDL, and they work directly with BOE. They have access to data, and they provide us the projections. So you'll see just a slight change there in sales tax revenue, which that is the total impact in the current proposed budget. Now, utility user tax, and we've seen that, and we've talked about this, and there has been the change. And we did recognize the change, and I highlighted that earlier. It was primarily national beef between 14, 15, and 16. 15, 16, a combination of the wind down and water conservation. We did project up to go back up in 17 and leave it constant in 18. What we do what I do when we do projections is we account for increases that we have control over for water, sewer, and trash. Primarily water and sewer. Trash, that's contracted out, so it's based minimal CPI, so not such a significant impact. So we do an average of water and sewer anticipated increases and have that as a reflection into utility user tax. However, this year did not take that formula for utility user tax as an assumption. So it would have probably increased over $2 million in addition, on the revenue line item, but proposing that we are still accounting for 12 full months with the unknown of its continuation past May 2018. That's why that has been left in that structure. I'm open to any questions regarding.
Ruby, thank you for this. I think I brought up also, referring to the history of the utility user tax. It'd still be interesting to see how it's kept pace with revenue growth. And I think, I kind of assume we would see something like this, but more volatility in sales tax than there is obviously in property tax revenue. But the fact is, revenue growth in a city such as ours is not going to be something that's going to outpace at times inflation or outpace at times cost of doing business. But I thought this was helpful. It would still be interesting. I don't know if we have it as we move forward with utility user tax to see kind of what the entire history looks like since the inception of utility user.
Right, and we're still gathering that data. We have, we don't have historical GL data still in the system from back 1992. There's been a system conversion that went through in 2009, which kind of, those files didn't transfer over, a majority of them. We do still have historical financials, which we've been pulling the data on that and trying to see, because there was a point in time in the way financials were presented then, there was a change in 2000 where then it broke out your taxes. The way you see it is just taxes, whether it was property taxes, whether it was sales tax, utility user tax, it was all lumped into one because it was the defined tax. However, later as years progressed in financial statement presentation, those taxes were then actually detailed and spread out so that you could see the individual, the amounts for each core tax.
Did you, Ruby, did you factor in under the utility users tax with One World Beef being back in operation? What impact that would have?
So not at the, it's basically taken into the current scale. So what I take is basically the utility user tax, when I take into projections, I'll take the current amount and I'll project what kind of growth we'll have in water and sewer. So it's a correlation of that. So what I take is, in this case, we've closed February at the time that these were being prepared. I will take the revenue stream that's been impacted, that we've received, which we've had One World Beef bills starting up, say, since August, and took them into February, which they're showing an increase in consumption. So those have been factored. Wastewater has been very
into this?
Yes, so those they're calculated in my overall service charge revenue, which is then a domino effect into utility user tax, but to be clear, I didn't factor in, no, I didn't. I did it in overall service charge revenue. So I didn't change, if you see 1718 does not show any change.
Okay.
So not so much One World Beef is not factored in there because it may be, if it continues past May 2018, if not, then we're looking to cover the gap for an additional 160,000.
Okay.
Yeah, so. So I didn't think it was wise. I could, go back, but being the unknown of the utility user tax, I think this is the most conservative approach.
Well, I'm just thinking because of the amount of water that they're consuming.
Yeah.
And the 4%, the utility tax, that I would have expected it to be higher. But that's why I was asking that question.
So maybe one way to look at it is, will it represent more than 160,000?
Okay.
Because that's we've built in as though it's 12 months when it's really 11.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
It probably will be. Okay.
Thank you, Ruby.
Because One World Beef was 250.
Okay, so this is an overall representation from a pie chart point of view of the type of expenditures that we have. We made reference to this breakdown in the strategic planning workshop. As you can see, like many public agencies, we are just shy of 80% assigned to employee compensation by general fund overall, and then about 3.2 million or so supplies and materials and services. And I want to take a moment to take a look at how our staffing model has changed over the last several years. As you may recall, we went through some pretty significant restructuring with the loss of redevelopment agency funding. And as a result of that, we had positions that had historically been assigned to the revenue source of the RDA that had to either be eliminated or absorbed back into the general fund. And so in 2014, we saw a much lower figure of 111.8 full-time employees full-time permanents supported by the general fund. And you begin to see a modest set of changes that maybe look a lot more optimistic in the bar chart, but for 111.8 to 114.8, we began implementing the one firefighter a year for 4 years, 50% staffing strategy. So one of the 3 full-time employees referenced there is the firefighter, and then we added on 2 school resource officers, and they represent the additional 2 full-time employees at 114.8. And then the following year, the only addition was the firefighter for a year. That was year 3. That was the only full-time permanent person added to the general fund cost center. And then between 16 and 17, last fiscal year, we had very high hopes to create more permanent positions. But based on mid-year budget check-in and audited financial statements from the prior year, we exercised caution and reserve with regard to proceeding with the 3 additional authorized positions. And those were the senior center coordinator, making that permanent, the graffiti abatement worker, making that permanent, and a firefighter. So we didn't, while those were authorized in 2017, they have not been actually realized. And what we are proposing in 2018 is not moving forward with any of those planned hires, and instead you'll see a slight a change that represents the 3 positions previously referenced: firefighter, graffiti abatement, and senior center. So there are no changes in this next fiscal year proposed budget for changing up staffing. And while the number represents 115, I just want to take a moment to explain that because the school resource officer grant ends mid-year, what it translates to in the budget is 1 full-time, full-year person, because it's 6 months of 2 less people. So the reason the number is represented at 115.8 is because we're reducing by just 1. And that change results in the loss of 1 full-time. So next year, we'll have a scenario that does not in any way reflect the change in full-time general fund bodies.
What would it take for, let's see, how can I put the question? What would it take for us to be able, how much, or maybe amount of money, for us to be able to go ahead and do the full-time senior director and the abatement?
Just those 2 positions?
Yes.
And not move forward with firefighter?
Yes, and the firefighter. There was 3, yes.
So we would go back to our original gap of 852, and I'm going to give just a guesstimate. I am, the difference of a temporary full-time to a permanent full-time on both, 85,000 total. So you would add to your gap 852 plus 85.
To make the three full-time? The three?
Only 85,000 for the three?
The firefighter that enters is a PEPRA. It would be a PEPRA person. So the rate of pay and the cost of the overall benefit package is lower.
Because I'm just thinking, she said, that Ruby said, One World Beef was not included in the estimate in 2018.
Right. One World Beef is not included, but 1,975,000 is overstated by 160,000. So the reason I gave the contrast, we can lower those to actually reflect 11 months, and what that's going to do is add back to the gap, 852 plus 160.
Because I was just stating that on National Beef, it was $250,000 that we would get a month, I believe, at that, for the wastewater. Yes, just for the wastewater.
No, it's
So-
actually the whole bill.
Oh, was it the whole
Yeah,
bill?
that was when they contested the penalty. At that point, it was a total bill because the penalty came out to about $25,000.
So it wasn't per
So what
month.
is the projected income? I mean, that's really what I was trying to get at. What is the
Yeah.
projected income with One World Beef now that they're in full operation?
They're not in full operation yet. Their intention is 238,000 gallons per day when biofiltro is in place, but we're not there yet.
But what are they using
Or are they
right
at
now?
like 200,000 or something?
200,000, 250.
Well, remember, we have water side and we have sewer side. The sewer side, we're in a catch-up mode for emptying of what is there. So I'm not sure we can safely project what that final,
I'm asking about the water side.
okay. So we're in the process of true-ups with water.
Water is estimated, I just did their bill, so their billing is probably, don't quote me on it because I just not exactly.
Ballpark?
But ballpark is, water, you're looking at an average of maybe 5 million gallons a month, maybe, on average. And the bill correlates to about, I would want to say 15,000 for water.
Per month.
So then take 4%.
About $600.
Of utility tax.
Yeah, 4%. Because what they pay is, the way we structure the rates is that it's based on their meter, their size of their connection, their
I'm
meter
sorry,
size.
how much was it per month? Their bill, their water bill?
It's, I would say it's about 15,000.
Okay.
Whereas the bill for National Beef.
Was significantly higher.
Considering water.
And
sewer,
wastewater, because it's,
It was about $160,000, $200,000.
yes.
That was
But I mean, it's still additional income, I mean, any way you look at it.
Yeah, and it can be captured, if you want us to tighten, we can also reduce what we know will be short, which is a month.
Okay.
So we can back out, what we didn't is we didn't back out that 12th month. We could assume that it does expire, doesn't get renewed, back out the 160,000 and try to flow in 11 months of One World Beef, which would still probably bring us below the 1.975. But I don't have a problem doing that, that's
You want
fine.
us to work up a scenario for the
Okay.
councils,
All
right? So what this slide aims to do is the four-year recap, and because of the size of the table, we couldn't do it all year by year, so it's shown in two different sets of entries. So for the last 4 years, you'll see in the year ending 2015, we came out ahead with the payment for the regional board, that first installment, that's what the RWQCB represents. We had in the year, fiscal year ending 2015, we made our installment payment to the regional board, and we programmed $32,000 in capital projects, and in addition to that payment and a one-time transfer, from special funds for eligible expenses, we came out ahead at $44,675. In the year ending 2016, overall revenues and expenditures are shown, and you'll see that we programmed a much more aggressive schedule of capital projects at $305,922. We also made a regional board payment. In 2016, we did not transfer special funds, and we came out short, or maybe short isn't the proper word, by implementing a program of expenditures that's represented by $15,400,015 and $305,922 in capital projects, and making our regional board payment. We came out with expenditures from the reserve in the total sum of $1.4 million. And then 2017, as we come to an end, in 2017, the council provided very critical direction in the budget process to set aside reserve for key landmark expenditures. Those included efforts to replaster the Lions Center pool so it can continue to be in year-round use. It also included the replacement or the set-aside of resources for breathing apparatuses for the fire department personnel. That was in the sum of about $300,000. Those projects are not yet complete, but the program dollars were put in place and earmarked. So that $842,500 includes those two very large projects, which are a total of $800,000. And then when we account for our regional board payment of $133,000 and take advantage of special funds that were available for eligible expenses at $255,766, we expect at the end of 2017, June 30, 2017, to have utilized approximately $1.2 million. And in 2018, the assumptions that were provided to you, we've got the police chief bridge. We aren't adding any permanent personnel to the budget. We have yet to determine what that difference is, and we're hoping for direction from you today. But we do know we have obligations in 2018 that include the regional board payment, and we have the potential use of $128,000 of special law enforcement funds to fund eligible expenses. Okay, so where were we per our audit? This audit was accepted by the City Council a couple of months ago. At the end of 15-16, our audited financial statements showed us at just about $3.7 million. This fiscal year, we are anticipated to have expended $1.2 million, or to have set aside the expenditure of $1.2 million, because that includes our planned but not yet complete capital projects. At the close of this fiscal year, June 30, we expect to have $2,477,841 as our closing general fund reserve balance. And with the proposed budget that is shown with a solution yet to be determined for the gap, the set aside for the general fund reserve is $2,347,120. So you see we have about 100, if the council wishes to stay consistent with the general fund reserve preservation policy next year, the only changes that could be accommodated with general fund reserve use would comprise about $130,000. It's that difference between the minimum set aside and what we estimate to be the closing balance.
130? Is that what you said?
Yes. The 2,477,841 minus 234, or 2,347,120. Okay. So I would be remiss not to mention the other assumptions that are built into the General fund budget, these have been standing contributions. They may not be reflective of changes that the council considered as one-time commitments during the fiscal year that were handled as a budget adjustment. Our normal Chamber of Commerce contribution is $10,000. It's assumed in the model. Our normal IVEDC contribution is $5,000. The Film Commission, $5,000. League of Cities, SCAG, CALED, and ICSC are all shown there. And they don't include all of the entities to which we are members, but are kind of the largest and most often asked about.
On the California League of Cities, the 10,000, is that something that all cities have to contribute?
Yes.
Is it a percentage?
It's based on population, and they publish their schedule of fees. League of Cities publishes their schedule of fees, as well as SCAG, based on the size of the community.
So that's a must.
If you want to
It's
be
not
a
a
member,
must. If we
it's
want to
not
be members,
necessarily a
yeah.
must.
Well, we
Depends
wouldn't
on
be
if you want.
part of the League of Cities if we didn't pay it, right?
Right.
That's right.
So it's a must.
So staff and I are here to answer questions, help with discussion. We hope it's helpful to focus on the big picture, but also drill down in some areas. I know there's, a lot of interest on the part of council for us to do more. The hard part is doing more with so much less as we continue to shrink as an agency. With that, happy to take comments or questions.
Besides the utility tax that we must put on the ballot, and it has to pass, literally. I know it's kind of hard to discuss because I know we're at 4%, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And if we upped it to 4.5, how much help would that be to?
So our on average is
2 million?
is 1.9 million per year is what our estimate is at 4%. Do a 0.5% increase.
It'd be about $500,000 for 4.5, you said? Yeah,
The
that would be about
0.5.
$250,000 increase.
Wouldn't help a whole lot on the shortfall.
I do want to share, there's a lot of efforts underway within departments currently to see, can we continue to scale back line items and preserve staffing levels. There are some very active discussions underway. There are also subsequent changes in service levels, though. As we change up the number of staff that are available, our ability to continue to deliver at the same level is a challenge. But we are committed to doing our best to present to you a balanced budget, which means structurally balanced, which is a very, very hard road to travel.
And I guess the other consideration would be that we could look at the possibility, the policy, I guess the policy's 15% reserves, and that's another thing that we might want to consider if we don't feel we can work within that.
Right, as adopted by the council could also choose to relax the set-aside amount for unusual circumstances.
There's a number of things that we can consider, yeah.
Yeah, in that situation, we would bet, I guess we're betting that we utilize a reserve, and we're betting that your estimates of some of the revenue sources are lower than what we would actually receive for that given year, and so we would come back with a certain amount of reserves that we would have available. Now, it might not be the full amount, but traditionally, we have spent some of the reserves every year. I think we need to be aware of that. And even though we talk about the balanced budget when we begin the year, usually we either have an earthquake or some type of breakage of water pipes or drain pipes or whatever else, and we usually wind up spending some of the reserve. So, I mean, we've been able to maintain the 15% reserve even with that. And I think last year, we had even an abundance of about $1 million additional to that reserve, if I'm not, maybe it's 500,000. There was an amount, and it was much, much more than the
Right, so
15%.
if you see it in 2015, that's when it occurred. If you look at this slide, council approved 14.2 million in expenditures, but we actually came out significantly ahead in that we were expecting to pay the regional board payment out of the reserve. We were able to pay it out of revenues.
Correct.
Last year, we weren't as fortunate. We had an issue with the estimates that were overly optimistic. And with the declining gas prices, it really can cause a significant fluctuation in our revenue horizon. The other thing I wanted to point out is I joined the city in 2011. At that time, we'd zeroed out all capital projects with a desire to try to practice the most lean work possible and defer maintenance because we didn't know what the future would hold. We then began to plan for some very important community projects, but you can see, so you see in 2015, we begin to start programming use of the funds. And that is, in some manner, I think a good argument can be made that you have the general fund reserve set aside of 15%, but we didn't do something with the funding in excess. You could either use it to perform projects in a given year, or you could contribute it to the maintenance fund. The maintenance fund is the holding tank for all deferred items. I will note for water and sewer breaks, anything in that arena, or street-related matters, those do have special funds that we utilize. Sometimes. General fund is kind of the precious goat that we have the ability to use for whatever is of greatest importance to the council and the community. It's the most flexible money. It's how we pay for the quality of life features that are part of public safety, part of the library, part of Parks and Rec.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, Rosanna, again, thank you for the report, albeit obviously it's not the greatest in news. We have a challenge ahead of us. I just maybe speaking kind of openly here for the workshop, as staff, can we look at kind of a combination of everything? Maybe not going to the extreme of maybe the time that you were referencing when you started and just, zeroing out all capital projects, but I certainly think we need to take this kind of 1 year at a time looking ahead, because I do expect, again, I'm not the financial wizard of trying to figure out where gas prices are going to be and whatnot, but we do have a large industrial operation that opened this year, so those things are yet to be realized down the road. Utility user obviously is up to the voters, so that obviously can for us, we should plan accordingly, meaning it may not be successful. There's always that opportunity. So with all that in mind, can we have the approach? I know all our departments are looking, as always. I think they've been pretty good, but to me, a couple percent savings, maybe not 10%, something as radical as that, but a couple percent savings obviously could be significant, looking at our overall operation. Some of that may come back to us with maybe a difficult decision there too. I hope not, but again, if we can take a hard look at that, something we do control, which is our expenditures. And then with that, on kind of that revenue side, kind of planning ahead, I think we could maybe look at least for the year, a little loosening of the general fund reserve policy, which I think is a sound policy, but even a change from 15 to 10% with the intent of going back to 15%, I think can be a good thing. But I think the most important thing is that we get as close to balancing the budget. A couple of things I wanted to hit on is just some of the hard and fast on your stark reality that I totaled up approximately $400,000 of increased expenditure, cost, I guess, of doing business between our continued installments. And the point of the continued installments, we have two more. That means somewhere down the road there is a little light at the end of the tunnel where we will not have to pay $133,000. But at least for the next year and the year after, we still have that reality. So accounting for that, our risk, overall risk assessment, our cost of insurance, I think most of us in this room as consumers know that insurance premiums Has anyone witnessed that going down? If you have, great, wonderful. Mine hasn't ever in any insurance policy I've purchased. It's unfortunate. And then endeavoring in some of the higher risk activities we do as a city, I can see that. I think we need to keep managing that as best we can, but I consider that there's not a whole lot we can do about that. And then, of course, I think the CalPERS contribution increases, is another big piece of reality that's kind of hitting us. You mentioned under the restructuring of the CalPERS. I know it's an estimate at 190, but what was up to potentially? Was there another 110? You said 300,000?
The 300 is overall to the city.
Yeah.
190 is estimated for the general fund.
For the general fund, got it. Okay.
But we didn't build it in the model. So if council has a comfort with the staff incorporating 190,000 assumption, we can build it in, and that will offset to 760? No, 660. 660.
662, okay.
The difference, it begins to kind of close, bridge
I would
the
like
gap.
to see some of those things happen, but I want to be careful about that, too.
I think we do have to be careful, because the assumption is also that the utility user tax is going to continue for that 12th month.
Right. And we do
So
not know that.
we're also, that's $160,000.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, that essentially would balance itself out, so the number still would remain close to 852. So there's a lot to consider.
Depending upon what happens, prices could go up as they have been recently. I mean, there's a lot of fluctuation, but I mean, for us, it appears in California that gas prices are not going to go down at this point.
Right. I think it'd probably behoove us to just go with what our current reality is today, right? If it does, great. I mean, that's something that'll probably be realized down the road, but trying to draw this number in a little bit closer with some of the work that we're going to do as staff, I think, looking at this, we do have to look at some cost-cutting measures. Again, I'm kind of putting the number out 2%. I know it's not as simple as applying that just to our total general fund forecast. It's probably off of a smaller number of that, but even 1-2% bump, if we can look at that and maybe pursue that as a department. You said we're already doing it, but maybe so we're kind of setting a little bit of a numbers expectation. If we're able to identify and find that, and you can come back to us with that, and then we do take the 190 assumption, and we do look at our general fund policy, and we do maybe consider some of our capital expenditures. Now, I know critical infrastructure, I trust our departments know the difference between, and I'm not saying anything we're doing is of a huge luxury. The pool is the one that comes to mind for me that I know needs to be addressed. We all know needs to be addressed. We're just hoping and praying to God that it remains serviceable for the public as we keep moving forward. But didn't you not mention a meeting or two ago, there was some solutions there we were looking at, getting some kind of an estimate of what another round of, dare I say, call it patchwork, but kind of maintenance work could be done to prolong its use, even if it's...
Replastering is definitely the need, because the patches
are not holding.
Holding.
And we have
what I show on this slide, it includes under 2017 the capital project. It hasn't been expended.
Right.
It's shown as programmed. It's 500,000. We do not expect at this point. We're in design for the pool replastering.
Okay.
We expect to have new estimates something like the next 90 days.
Okay.
And we could theoretically downward adjust. We're also holding out for the hope that the fire department was successful in its pursuit of grant funds for the breathing apparatus, in which case that one-time reserve money could then go back to the savings account.
Personally deal with the chief on that and kick as hard as I can. Hopefully he comes through. And I know those are one-time monies, but so I think that's fair to say, I wasn't 100% aware of that pursuit, and I don't know what the probabilities are, but I would kind of begin there. Again, trying to kind of corral this figure, and I think if we go at this aggressively, and I know it'll be incumbent upon council ultimately to make some of these decisions, especially if they're more difficult decisions, but I think it's really important. I'm expressing my desire to see us work our tail off to get this number much closer to a balanced budget, even if it means we have to consider whether it's a project, which I know is one-time money, whether it's maybe a continuous program that's costing X amount a year. We should do that. with the thought that there's additional recovery. I mean, if the nation doesn't get involved in infrastructure improvement and I think a transportation bill with the state, there's a lot of activity going on at the state and even federal level. So, and I think some of the things we're going to discuss a little bit here in the upcoming workshops, I think we need to keep kind of forging ahead the right way, but we have to keep ourselves financially sound. So those are just some of my suggestions.
Mr. Mayor,
from my
if
notes.
I could add something. If we were looking at even a 2% general fund cost savings, that's over $300,000 that would. And then Mayor Couchman had mentioned, even looking at our reserve policy and seeing if we can reduce that. So that may be some money that we can
If we
apply
reduce
there.
that, if we went to 10%, and I'm not advocating the 10%, but if we went to 10%, that would give us about $800,000 out of the reserve. Now, I'm not advocating taking $800,000 out of the reserve, but if we have to come to that point, then we would come to that point. But I think we can do some cost savings, and I think we can also look at some revenue. I think our projections are very conservative, so I do
agree.
believe that that's the case.
With the
And
one
I think
exception
that's-
of the
and I think-
utility user tax.
Yeah, okay, and I
12
understand
month,
that.
yeah.
And I think that ultimately, I think we need to be conservative going into this picture, but I also think that we have some outlet for some additional savings and possibly some additional revenue. And so I think that ultimately, as long as we can keep the reserve at a certain level, and I'm not advocating taking it to 10% or anything of that nature, but I do think if we have to utilize a portion of that or have to offset that policy for this year, if we can recover that money, then we're okay for next year too. So we'll see how that goes. We have traditionally spent a portion of the reserve every year. So I think we need to be aware that now we've been
On
able to
capital
maintain
projects,
a
on regional
balance
board
on the
payments,
reserve,
right.
and each year we've been able to maintain the balance, but we have utilized a portion of it every year. So.
And we're always talking about where we're going to cut or where we're going to take away from. And I think we need to kind of look also on how we're going to make more money. Where is it that we can make more money? And I think we really need to get out there and sell on the utility tax and even upping it, unfortunately, but we need to sell it. We need to explain why we need to maybe let's say not that we're going to do it, but let's say we tell the people, we're going to go from 4% to 5%, and we have to have it. But we have to be good sellers. Tell them why we need it, explain. Because we always talk about where we're going to cut. And most of the time, it's the kids. The kids is the part, Parks Recreation, the library, those are hit the hardest. And that, again, is our kids. It's like the high school for the fireworks. I'll give you an example. When they sell fireworks, a lot of that money is things like they're having to put new windows in the baseball field. I don't know if they talked to you about that. And I forget, Billy had sent me a note telling me how much it was going to be. And he says that part of that money from the fireworks that he makes, that's where the money comes from. So that's why they have to have the sale of the fireworks, because a lot of that money goes back into the fields, goes back into things that the city doesn't have. The pool, they bought some stuff for the pool. So it's critical. We think about those things, that we have to, not just take away, but we have to be able to give the people so that we don't have to spend that money. We have to think about it that way. But also, sell the utility tax. That's my biggest thing. And I would think 5%. Just something to think about.
I think at this point, we just need to consider all options.
I think you have some direction. I think we want to look at some options. I think we're going to want to see additional information. I think we're probably also going to want to see additional updates as to as to how the revenue is coming in. I think we're going to have some updates that are a little more frequent maybe than what we have now, although I do know we pretty much get some frequent updates, but we want to be sure that we're in the right position. We want to make sure that what our projections are for this budget are what are actually happening. If it's more than what we're projecting, we need to know that right away. If it's less than what we're projecting, then I think we need to know that right away. So we don't want to get in any kind of position where we are in an unknown situation.
Mr. Mayor, I have one more request, just popped in my head on the revenue, presentation. If we could see that same presentation on another meeting with the percentage of revenue growth per year, that would just be helpful. I mean, I ran the math myself, but I think that would be good to see. in answering maybe some of the questions of how has our revenue tracked from one year to the next.
I have them as if we've been working on this. I don't have it in a printed form for you, but 2003 is when we started publishing with the detail. In 2003, just to give you some idea, 2003 financials reported $1,075,099 in utility user tax. And since then has then slightly grown. You know, the next year was up another 150,000. The next year another 100. And look, it seemed like an average of 150,000 per year to get us to the point that in this last report we have is about.
Yeah.
So it continued to grow. It continued to grow since 2003 as far as that detail was actually.
It seems like some of that's double-digit growth, if not, 10%, growth. And
yeah, I would say an average of 150, 180,000 per year.
Well, that's pretty phenomenal revenue growth for a public agency. If the United States was growing at 10% a year in GDP, we would not probably be having this conversation.
Oh, well. Yeah. Okay, so I think staff has a direction. I think we'll be having some additional discussions regarding this. So.
If I may just ask one clarifying question, we will continue to work at the department level to do everything we can to lean our departments. I know it's a difficult exercise to diminish the staffing and have the services decline, but we'll try our very best to maintain those highest levels with regard to the companion expenditures. I just want to be really sure that I understand the consensus of the body, which appears to be that the 190,000 should not be factored in. There is no desire, by factoring in the 190, which we think is
I want you to
do want to factor
you
it in.
want,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
I'm glad I asked.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it should be factored
We
in.
think you should
Okay.
factor it.
That would just be an Excel, like you could do both scenarios, it
Right.
doesn't matter, it just.
You can give us both scenarios if you want, but I think you should.
Yeah, I was trying to understand. You want to include the 190 on a constant scale plus add the other
Yes. The other revenues.
Utilities?
revenues that you
Projected
were,
revenues.
right? Is that, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
So we're looking at best case scenario, is that maybe a better way to explain it?
Yeah,
So-
best case versus worst case scenario, I think we're looking at both. I think we'll look at both. If you factor in the 190, we know what the worst case would be, we don't receive anything of that 190. The best case is we receive the 190, and anywhere we fall within the middle is probably something to the good for us. Yeah. So I think you've got to factor in that.
So in terms of next steps, normally what we would do at the next workshop is do the special funds and enterprise funds. We can still proceed with that, but it appears maybe desirable for the council to have another
Follow-up.
check-in, which we did last year. We didn't schedule it, but we can definitely put it into the lineup. So there's one more check-in with you before overall budget adoption. So as it currently stands, we're scheduled to adopt in May. Instead, we'll push out to June, which is fine, and have one more time at which we ask for guidance from the council.
Right, and I think our direction also is for departments, at least from Councilmember Wharton and from the council, so look at departments to cut a certain percentage. It does not necessarily have to be a large percentage, but I think we're looking at it between 1% and 2% probably.
Those efforts are already underway. Based on some of our departments that are one-person operations, it's very, very challenging to give them a target.
And it may be impossible, but
But we are working at it, and I hope to have good news that accounting for the
CapEx,
190, that gets us closer to something like a $450,000 gap.
Yeah.
And I'm not so sure the one-person department has that much of an impact, but I do know that the larger departments do have an impact, and that's what we're going to do.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And now on to item number 6, which is on our regular business agenda. Discussion and potential action to authorize the Holt Group Incorporated to provide professional services associated with Federal Transportation Administration FTA 5311 grants, SA 6414007 and SA 64BC 15 and 00236 for a fee not to exceed $82,000.
Mayor Ketchman, I will be presenting on that item. Included in the backup on page 102 to 107 are two documents. As council has been advised, the city is a recipient of just shy of $1 million of 2 grant awards associated with bus shelters and ADA improvements. Our hope when we competed for that grant award was to utilize in-house engineering talent to accomplish those projects. Given the timing of the receipt of the funds, or award of the funds, and the obligations to produce the deliverables, they coincided with some really significant changes that we experienced in the Public Works Department. We did proceed with a request for an extension and received an extension, and despite the extension, we were unable to perform the engineering in-house given subsequent departures that took place. So what is included in the backup is a final request for a timeline extension. And as I have briefed council, we're kind of at a fork in the road with regard to how to proceed. We could return the award of funds, and the loss of that approximately $1 million could harm not only the city of Brawley but the region, in that there's no assurance that any of our local jurisdictions will be able to tap the resources, or we can come up with a strategy on an extremely aggressive time frame to accomplish the design and meet new milestones. So in the backup, you'll see we have requested of Imperial County Transportation Commission consideration of a final extension for the grant awards. We are bundling the two projects together, and our hope is to proceed with utilizing the Holt Group to perform the work required to basically save and preserve the opportunity. There are some very aggressive timelines that are included in the deliverables. We have a 90-day turnaround that is particularly, I think, challenging. You'll see the project schedule is included on page 103. It is staff's recommendation at this point to proceed with awarding the work to the Holt Group. And we will not be using general fund dollars. We will be using special funds that are for transit and pedestrian-related improvements.
Comments from the council?
No, I understand the limitations that we have, and so I would not want to forego a grant receipt or impact the rest of Imperial County. So I would be in favor of moving forward.
I would be in favor of moving forward.
I don't think we want to leave the $1
project.
million on the table.
I wouldn't want to return successful grant money.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. So
Really?
you need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. Mayor.
I'll second.
I have a second. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Item 6B, Brawley Business Incentive and Survey Update by City Council members George Nava and Donnie Wharton.
Well, we're going to present from the podium out here, and
Okay.
we have a brief PowerPoint presentation. Mr. Wharton, would you like to join me, please? I'm sorry we don't have handouts for council. I completed the PowerPoint presentation just prior to council. I think it's up here now. And you can guide me there? Where's
Right there,
the-
right there. One more over, George.
All right. So as I had made a commitment the other day at our council meeting, I had said that I would be meeting with some business leaders and community leaders throughout Brawley to get their input on what we can do to incentivize business development in the city of Brawley. So I was able to put a small group together within a 24-hour notice, and we ended up meeting on March 30th, 2017. So that's actually an overhead picture of Brawley. It's beautiful. That's volunteer park. And,
Perfect, George. And I wanted to add, this is also an extension of what we discussed for a couple hours actually at our strategic workshop. So downtown redevelopment, downtown improvement, aesthetic improvement, roads, streets, all those things were discussed, and this is one of the steps we decided to take outside of that.
So thank you. And so it's just a business roundtable discussion and Brawley business incentives discussion notes. So these are our notes of the conversation that we had with the various individuals that were in attendance, and I'll describe who those people were. So the participants, the moderators were myself and Councilmember Donald Wharton from the city of Brawley. We had attendee Sean Whittle from Newcastle Farms, and if you're not familiar with Newcastle Farms, that is an
business.
or more than 30-year business. It's on East Main now. They've relocated out there for some time, and I'll describe what they do in just a second. We also had Doug Dom, who is with Dom Real Estate Services. Although they don't have an office here in Brawley, they sell real estate throughout the Imperial County, and he is a Brawley resident and a longtime farmer out in the area. Andrew Dom, who's his son, is also a real estate agent with Dom Real Estate Services. We had Lisa Smelzer from Ooh La La Dance Studio, who is now the owner of that facility. And she actually is looking to relocate her business to some other part of the city, so I appreciate her input. We also had Troy Caston Jr. with Kaz Bros Design Shop, and he's located here in Brawley. He has been for about 1.5 to 2 years, and he's also looking to relocate his facility because he's outgrown his current location, and so his business is growing, and that's a good thing. We also had Mr. Jay Goyle with Exit Realty, and he's also a business owner and developer here. As we just approved a project for him earlier, and of course he has U.S. Fitness and Shell Station with the Circle K and other business interests within the community. Mr. Billy Hendiges with Hendiges Plumbing and he's also a real estate developer. As you know, he's purchased the location just across the street from here, which was the old Firestone or Scorpion Cycles location, and he's looking to develop that. He's also looking to develop along the plaza. I believe he's in escrow on the purchase of a building out there, and I'm hoping that that's successful. He also purchased the building that's located on 8th and G, which is the burned down Mona's restaurant and Red Stallion and all those other interesting places. Yeah, right. My dad cried when that place burned down.
I saw that.
Yeah, I know. He had a tear in his eye. We also had Darren Smith, who's with Smith Candle Insurance and Real Estate. He's also one of our planning commissioners. So I'm thankful that they were able to participate. Again, it was a group that I was able to, and along with Councilmember Wharton, we were able to wrangle together within about a 24-hour notice. And we ended up meeting for a lunch conversation at Tasty Fusion restaurant here in Brawley, and we ended up getting a lot of good information from the discussion. So some of the discussion points, so those are the participants. Do I click it? Yeah. Some of the discussion points, we narrowed down the focus of the conversation because we met for about 1.5 hours. And so what we talked about was we identified and defined the downtown specific plan area, and we selected that because there's already a plan in place, and we wanted to narrow the scope of the conversation. We also talked about business relocation and what are some benefits and challenges and expenses in relocating, whether that's within Brawley or to Brawley. We also talked about downtown Brawley business incentives, what can help generate development. And really, if you recall from the last conversation we had as council, I had brought this point up with respect to, I wanted to see what we can do to help incentivize people to, again, locate their businesses in Brawley or maybe move their businesses to a more prominent location or develop, right? So we asked the people that are actually going through it and doing it themselves. We also talked about a community cleanup plan, which is, the talking point there is a clean community promotes awareness and development. A lighting plan, which most of you are aware of, how can lighting influence change, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And we also talked about a Brawley business survey, questions to ask current perspective, current owners of businesses, and so questions to ask them. So those were the discussion points that we marked down. Okay, So with respect to the downtown specific plan area, I ended up taking this page from the specific plan, downtown specific plan, one of the pages within it, and that's a 177-page document. I think it's a really great document. It's located on our city website. I would encourage everybody in attendance to view that. This is one document from that, and it identifies a downtown specific plan area, which is essentially from First Street to Cesar Chavez, and from about D Street to G Street. So it's not a perfect rectangle, but it encompasses multiple downtown businesses. Certainly the 500 and 600 block of Brawley, and that's often what's referred to as downtown when people talk about it and criticize. So, or I wouldn't say criticize, but look at that as an area of improvement. How about that?
There.
Councilmember Nava, I'll just tag along on that. That doesn't mean our discussion was limited to that area, but clearly that was an area of emphasis and focus, as it has been with council. But we certainly had discussions that were really citywide, up and down east side, west side of Main Street. So just to clarify that.
So again, it was a loose conversation that we had. There was a lot of question and comments throughout the conversation. But we structured it into asking certain questions to try to get a better focus and a better idea of what would make sense to downtown business owners or business owners within the city of Brawley. So with respect to business relocation, we wanted to hear their comments. What are some of the challenges, maybe the experience people have faced? And what are some of the benefits of being there, and some of the expenses maybe that they hadn't expected, right? And so Newcastle Farms is an example. They've been in business within the city of Brawley for decades, 40 to 50 years. And so they were at a location off of Best Road for many, many years. And they ended up relocating outside of city limits for some time. And so they ended up, a few years back, they moved down to East Main, for the size and capacity of the building. And so it was a building location that was 5 times larger than their location out in the country. So, interestingly enough, they've had a very positive experience. And so sometimes we hear a lot of the negative comments that come towards us. They had a positive experience. The relocation resulted in a 25% increase in business for them from former clients returning, since many thought they had closed business. Out of sight, out of mind, right? So, so they mentioned that has improved their business. Some of the unanticipated costs, I think that's important for council to recognize, is that something we've heard in the past before. It's in their case, the example given to us by Sean Whittle was that there was an approximate cost of about $6,000 to install and reroute the water meter and backflow preventer. So that was something that they weren't expecting to pay, but they ended up obviously paying. And so I believe it was over $6,000. Councilmember Wharton, if you want to comment on that.
It was, as I was mentioned, and I think that's a common theme amongst many of the businesses. It's not as simple as even just installing those particular pieces of equipment, but it's also the work that it takes, depending on the configuration of the building, the location of the underground plumbing, whatnot. So, and it stands to reason. We can advertise it all day long, and this doesn't become relevant until a business actually has to move and or make improvements, and it's at that time that they find this to be a pain point to find out. So many times it's considered an unanticipated or an unbudgeted cost, and as you can imagine, most business folks, that's displeasurable. So
sure.
And excuse me. And adding to that, not just that. We had someone today call about he was going to rent out his business again, and he was told by this, or not, someone referred him over, told him he had to put a sidewalk. And so he got an estimate, it was $22,000. So
we're going to touch on that as well.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So, I've tried to identify specific comments by people. But many of the comments that we're expressing were expressed by the entire group. Okay, correct. So for example, the installation cost of the water meter and backflow preventer was something that was shared equally amongst all the attendees. Mm-hmm. So that's something that obviously we're looking at as council to see if there's a way or method to help improve that yeah,
Cost or
absorbing of the expense, if you will, yeah.
Or potential incentive or a
Right.
credit or something to come up on a further
Right.
future slide.
And this is a work in progress. I mean, it's just, I wanted to be able to present, and Donnie wanted to be able to present information to you to where we can help guide us in our decision-making in the future. Some other additional relocation comments. Mr. Billy Hendages stated that in Orange County, installed meters to start, the city of, or Orange County, they installed the meters themselves to start receiving the benefit from the water account. In other words, Orange County felt it was in their benefit to install them and not have the tenant or the owner of the building make the installation and have that expense. Another item with respect to relocating, especially in the downtown area, is the limitation of parking. So that was another item. I'm sure we're all familiar with those items. So with respect to Brawley business incentives, we talked about that. Obviously, that was part of the conversation. So examples of possible business incentives, maybe you want to lead this here?
Sure. Thank you, George. This is the part, again, and I want to make it clear to the public and everyone that's, obviously, as we're sharing this information with you, none of these are conclusions. These were suggestions. These were part of the dialogue, some of which Councilmember Nava, some of which the council itself we have discussed and we've come up with. So bear in mind, some of this is kind of an extension of the strategy workshop. But the no-free zone, no free. Nothing's free in the no-fee zone. What we're talking about there is how can we package a set of incentives, whatever those may be, that really entice a business, or could be the go, no-go decision of a business to actually locate and consider downtown. So with that kind of being the umbrella of the rest of this discussion, commercial water meter installation credits, so coming back around to that, if that's one of the pain points, is that something as a council we can consider for a defined district, for a defined location being that downtown area? So just again, something for consideration. When you kind of consider it from an investment standpoint, it actually becomes maybe a relatively small investment over the life of whatever the said account may be valued at, what the sales tax revenue may be valued at, as well as the enjoyment of the community and the overall attraction of downtown. So the benefits could far outweigh the cost, so something to consider.
And if I could add something to that, for example, Newcastle Farms, long established, much larger organization, so maybe to them a $6,000 unexpected expense is more easily absorbed than somebody like Ooh La La, who is, I'm not saying they're struggling, but they're a much smaller organization. So I think, considering that there could be some type of credit offered to businesses would be something that council could consider.
Absolutely. And then moving right along, the other one would be to offer perhaps an employee hiring credit. Something else we could explore. Again, all these things have to be vetted. It's something that we have to work through with staff on what the methodology will be, what the process is. But these are all things, again, to consider in a potential no-fee zone, if we're looking at downtown. Mr. Goyle had some great offerings. We noted that here. He said there's some city jurisdictions that are offering sales tax credits that could provide an incentive for businesses to locate in Brawley. Again, is this Brawley overall? Is this Brawley downtown? Is this to spark some redevelopment and some movement downtown? Something to consider. City could refund sales tax up to established limits. It could be a modest limit, but whatever you do, a credit's a credit, so something to consider. Impact fees, obviously always a hot topic, something we address annually. Perhaps we can look at impact fees being paid prior to the certificate of occupancy as a consideration of many times we're asked for some timing relief. So maybe there's some consideration there again. All of this, again, if you can imagine, we don't have to do every single one of them, but if they can be appropriately bundled, not negatively impact the city. For example, we just went through our general fund discussion. So this is more of the immediacy of what it does for the business to attract them, and at the same time, where there's not an immediate adverse impact per se to the city. So I think there's a balance here we can look at. Vacant buildings, that certainly comes up all the time. That's nothing new. We could address this and look at this as all part of this Brawley Business Incentives Package. So do we look at that as a city, and do we charge a monthly utility minimum use fee, for example, to offset the local impact? There was some actually robust discussion there. I mean, is there a heavy-handed side of that, or is there a balanced approach to that? So one of the things to consider, kind of our takeaway from the discussion, is when it comes to addressing the vacant building owners, we think one of the things to do is that we should put something in place in and of policy that hopefully the incentive creates, causes that owner to want to take advantage of some of these incentives themselves.
And not just a building, a lot, like we have on Main Street where that lot's been there for
Right.
years empty.
Sure. It's to create movement, the idea. This is not punitive, it's exactly opposite.
Right.
It's reward, it's incentive, so that we obviously can get some additional movement on over and beyond what we've already seen. Mr. Smith, Darren Smith, his offering was, and I think Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem, Noriega just brought that up very well, off-site improvement requirements. Obviously, can be extremely costly depending on the property. Maybe there's something, again, we can look at that particular piece in the downtown specific area, again, where we're trying to create movement. Is that realistic across the city? Perhaps not, but we need to look at that. I think many of those topics come to us on a case-by-case basis.
Grain growers, where's that?
It's off of 8th.
It's 8th and E,
Yeah.
8th and E.
behind Fire Station Number 1.
And that was Mr. Smith's recent experience with that particular client.
So what exactly does he mean by that?
For example, sidewalk improvements, those types of things.
If you
Yeah.
can imagine, the recent example that I can give is the car dealership, where we allowed them, or we forgave the fact that they would need a sidewalk there.
Right.
And so that would be something similar to that.
Okay, thank you.
Where you wouldn't make it a requirement, or you could lax the requirements.
So as we're moving off of this slide and continuing on, we're almost done here, but what I think is important in looking at this slide is for council, perhaps we can come back and continue to work on this Brawley Business Incentives Package and definitely have some future public discussion, make some decisions, see what we can package. We can maybe perhaps give staff at that point clear direction on what we'd like them maybe to consider and vet through as to the impacts, and see if we can come back with something on that. Yes.
You and George also were on the business advisory, you had that. You also came up at one time, or they came up with a book explaining, to the business, which I've heard that there's other cities, and I can't remember right now the name of the city that has one. I'll have to ask my friend, but that book helps so much to the people because they know what they're coming into, what they need. So I think that business book would really, you need to come back with it.
Maybe I can even touch on that. I didn't include it in the presentation, but
it was there.
Part of the conversation, the book it was there, but one of the conversations I had many years back here in the city of Brawley as a council member was to have what I described as a business manager. It's not somebody who would run the city business, but it's somebody who would be a point of contact for any development coming through, right? And so they would be the sole point of contact, and working with the building department, with the planning department, with all the different departments involved with respect to development, small or large. And so that's really what triggered the Business Advisory Committee, my desire for that. It didn't work out exactly how I wanted, but going back to the book, it certainly is useful, and part of the process was, it was discussed during the conversation. I just didn't include all those elements in there. So.
And see, those are things, you spend money on them, but at the same time, you're going to make money because the business manager will be working just on that, getting people to come in, and that would be, bringing revenue in, and also for a grant writer. I know we've talked about that several times, but those two sets of employees would be an asset.
Right, no, I agree. I mean, there's very little opportunity for the city to really generate money, and there could be some elements, some positions that could be generated, that would generate.
Councilmember Navi, I think the next slide is.
All right, so next is community cleanup. Business cleanup incentives and efforts. There needs to be a combination of enforcement and incentives, right? We talked about that. So we can be heavy-handed with enforcement, but there also needs to be a combination of incentives. And this is a comment that was shared by the group with respect to doing business in the city of Brawley. So again, enforce the ones that aren't participating in the process, maybe have vacant buildings, and there needs to be that enforcement. But again, there needs to be incentives for others to locate there. a focused cleanup of the downtown area. And when we're talking about the downtown area, even though the plan area is pretty wide, when we're generally referring to downtown, we're thinking maybe 500-600 block and that surrounding property. So clean out containers, this is something discussed by one of the downtown developers, make it an incentive for prospective and existing downtown businesses. So what he meant by that was that maybe we can assist in providing a dumpster for when they're doing their clean outs, so they can move in and locate a business in the downtown area, or even for an existing business that's wanting to improve their facility. So that's just something to consider as well.
Sorry, I keep interrupting, but, and to add to that, I think that we need to get Republic into the cleanup part, because of the fact that you get people dumping out in the alleys, our alleys. Why? Because there's no place to take their stuff. So I think we need more of a cleanup. You know how we have once or twice a year, we have a cleanup.
This coming week? Oh, no, April 23rd, just went out the utility bill.
Yes, I think there needs to be more days of those.
And, you know, and maybe off subject, but something to discuss in the future. The services are provided by Republic Services, right? And they provide tremendous services for the city of Brawley, for its residents. You know, but I think more people just need to be aware of the fact that those services exist. So
There's curbside pickup,
Right.
there's no-cost services that we can help to coordinate,
Right.
or they can contact Republic Services for direct.
But it certainly would be a good idea to work in conjunction with Republic to have some sort of incentive for you know, trash out, you know, and that, I think, could be worked out in working with Republic Services. One of the other comments that was shared by Doug Dom, he did make a note of the fact that much of the Main Street issues are deferred maintenance issues. So a lot of the businesses just haven't maintained themselves. A lot of the, you know, there may be old signage or paint and things of that nature that have gone by the wayside, or even the limited landscaping in some of the locations needs updating and care. So Darren Smith identified the fact that the median landscaping is in bad shape.
It's gone.
Yeah, well, that's part of the issue, right? And so, but you know, when it rains, there's a lot of weed activity and those sorts of things that we need to abate. And we did talk about, I proposed a community cleanup day where we could pressure wash buildings to improve safety and cleanliness, but that would really be much like we've done in the past, many years past, where we had community graffiti paint-outs. You know, the thought would be get a couple hundred people out and clean up the downtown area in a very thorough manner. And so get obviously the business owners and managers involved as well. But make it a community effort to where people really start to take pride in making our community cleaner and preserving that and making it stand out. So I'm going to move on to the lighting plan, and Mr. Wharton, if you can follow through here with it.
Now, if there's a council member here that enjoys lighting as much as Mayor Pro Tem Noriega, it's myself. But no, I think most of us find nightlife, night lighting, etc., accent lighting appealing. One of the discussions, and the reason why this kind of ended up with its own design, is starting at the top up there. We've been touting, we've been promoting, we've been talking about our scheduled downtown lighting plan presentation. There have been some renderings and some graphics of that in some of our past presentations. We're obviously excited about that. Again, modest investment when you consider the grand scheme of doing any kind of redevelopment and obviously going back into a downtown area and really trying to create a look and a theme. But with that, kind of rolling back around to that, we talked about accent lighting, perhaps coming up with a standard light fixture, or perhaps even a grouping of light fixtures for individual businesses up and down Main Street. And if there's a way to look at that from even going to the next bullet there of an illumination plan, whether it be interior or exterior. And what we're sharing here, this is just idea. But I want everyone to kind of think for a second. To go out and do significant facade improvements to buildings up and down Main Street obviously comes at a huge price. Hence, very difficult to do in a very short period of time. Lighting can have immediate impacts and can be very relatively cost effective, depending on what it is. Obviously, there's expensive lighting, but what we're kind of pushing to do here is maybe part of, when we're looking at the overall downtown plan, is for us as council to consider and continue discussing what perhaps we can do. I use the example even of if we were able to, again, modestly invest in lighting fixtures that simply attach themselves to our downtown building, consistent with the type of buildings we have. They may shoot upward, may shoot downward, they may be solar, but let's say they, again, aesthetically pleasing. But the key to this is if we had a plan where we're able to offer that to our existing businesses, sort of partner and invest together, and in the course of a matter of maybe weeks, even a month, you could have a whole different downtown at night, just by lighting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Versus what we have right now.
And it's an inexpensive, or a lot less expensive to be able to do that, and it's a lot more immediate than facade improvements and paint and everything else. The other thing we didn't touch on, Donnie, was, for example, even having a rebate program with, say, the IID, to where it does incentivize businesses to keep their lights on at night, right? Where it could be low-cost LED lights that are on within the buildings, but it just creates a different environment for the community. So.
No question, and obviously it's not a good example, but it's kind of like looking at Vegas during the day versus Vegas at night. The town comes alive. But it is amazing that when you look at even our residential homes, that if you do have night lighting, and I think with the cost of solar and low voltage lighting and things like that have gotten to the point where I think many people are able to enjoy and install that in their homes, we could really look and explore something downtown. Now, the 70s disco LED look there, I'm not suggesting that's what maybe Brawley downtown looks like, but the idea was to get some of our creativity, and hopefully there's a member of the public seeing this presentation tonight coming forward with some of the ideas. And we certainly, I think as a council, at our future, whether they're retail conventions, whether it's League of Cities conferences, conventions, can start engaging some of the vendors that do this type of stuff in cities all across the country. So Brawley nightlife, Nights for Brawley, night lights for nightlife. I know it's kind of hard to say that 3 times fast. This is just throwing out again something where we can change it completely, but really come up with a potential lighting plan and a movement downtown that can take what we have and bring it to life.
No, and really going back on that night lights for nightlife, think about it as a theme, and if we're able to get people to buy into that. If you have 3 or 4 businesses that started, and everybody, you got to start somewhere, right? And so these are just ideas. It's ideas from ourselves, from the group that we were able to discuss. And I think there's some good things that came out of the conversation. And these are people that are in business within the city of Brawley, or are looking to bring businesses into the city of Brawley. So I really do appreciate the comments that they shared with us. I think they were very good. The next item, actually, I'll let you lead on that, Councilmember Wharton, because it is the Brawley Business Survey. There are some questions that were developed for a planned or potential survey. Nothing set in stone at this moment, but these are survey questions, and I'll have Councilmember Wharton explain what the questions are and why we're asking these types of questions.
2 more slides and we're done, and they're just the question. 3, I'm sorry. Okay, we have a total of 8 questions. Did we narrow it down to? There were a few more?
We got 10.
10. Okay, we have 10 questions, so 3 per slide. We'll get through these. So this would be, one of the thoughts we had just before we go ahead is that we can target our current Brawley business license holders. So that's an instant database. You're doing business in Brawley, we can target that population. So roughly 1,100 plus, something like that. And these would be the type of questions. What we could do is maybe put out a mailer that would go out, a relatively inexpensive mailer that would simply lead them to this online survey that they can take, and then we can tally the results from that. So the number one question, folks, and this is actually some research, a long-time research that's come from Bain Capital when it comes to doing customer service surveys and really trying to dig into what consumers feel. And we've all been asked this question many times. Whoops, I'm going to go back. How likely is it that you would recommend the city of Brawley to locate a business or to do business with? On a scale of 1 to 10, again, I didn't put the whole survey up there, we just want to summarize it, but on a scale of 1 to 10, going from not likely to extremely likely. Referrals are the most important metric, most important measure that we can get from a business. Have you been asked how many times would you refer a friend or a family to a restaurant? How many times would you refer a family to a particular business? In this case, and again, we may tweak this a little bit, but we wanted to present this. This is what we've come up with. This probably is the most important question, and if they don't answer any other questions out of the survey, this capture could be the most important and the most telling for us. Number 2, overall, how satisfied or dissatisfied are you with being located in the city of Brawley? Folks, if we're going to tally and go after the truth, let's separate myth from really reality. And so we want these answers, and that's why I want the public to know. One of the things George and I discuss with the group is absolutely being as candid and getting actual information from our business community. So again, you'll notice these questions go right after that. Are they very satisfied, or are they very dissatisfied, and everything else in between? Number 3, which of the following words would you use to describe the city departments? Select all that apply. So you're going to notice kind of half positive, half not so positive, but reliable, high quality, helpful, informative, ineffective, poor quality, unreliable. So again, whoever's taking the survey can pick from those. They may pick some, they may pick all, who knows, if they're not paying attention. Yeah, right, fill in the blank.
We have a section for that as well.
We do have a little section for that. Number 4, how well does the city of Brawley meet your needs? And again, we're targeting the business community, so we're talking about a business person. There may be certain services they use, certain services they don't use, such as engaging planning, engaging administration, engaging, coming down and taking care of utility accounts, etc. So some of these, you might have your residential hat on, but just bear in mind we're kind of focused on the business community. So again, the continuum there, extremely well, all the way to not at all well. So number 5, how would you rate the quality of city services? From very high quality to very low quality, everything else in between. Number 6, how responsive have staff been to your questions or concerns about your needs? From extremely responsive to not applicable. Number 7, how long have you been doing business in Brawley? Fill in the blank. We left it open because if we kind of scaled that out, you would hit a bunch of numbers or a bunch of ranges. So if we can capture that, we figure that's important. Because if you've been doing business in Brawley for 40 years versus your prospective business, or you're looking to do business in Brawley, it's going to help us to understand maybe some of the survey results a little bit better. The last 3 questions are optional. Do you have any other comments, questions, or concerns? That would be a blank, and it could be a fill-in, type in the blank. Number 9, optional, name of your business, and number 10, optional, your name. And again, they're optional to put it in, but the more of this we capture, we can come away with some very valuable input and data.
And that wraps up the comments. There was further discussion and commentary throughout the group, but we got a lot of information, and we wanted to be able to present some of the highlights of the conversation. I think it gives you a good idea of some of the concerns that they've expressed, some of the ideas that business owners and developers have for our community, as well as Councilmember Wharton's ideas and my own. So we put that together for you, and we would like to thank everyone that participated, and of course the rest of council for giving us the opportunity to present the information, and would like to again thank everybody for watching. There's more to come. We're going to be coming back with a finalized survey and putting the survey out there. We're going to need city staff's assistance for that, and any more information that we can investigate and bring back to council, we're certainly going to do that. But I want to give special thanks to Tasty Fusion Restaurant for providing the space to meet, and they provided good food that day, and so I appreciate that. But it was all planned within about 24 hours, and everybody thankfully was able to attend, and the restaurant was able to accommodate us, and it worked out. So I appreciate it very much, and I hope you benefited from the presentation. Thank you. Thank you.
Good job.
I'll be here all
How do I?
Very good job.
Look at a standing ovation.
All right. Good idea.
Thank you.
I think we can move along
Yep.
to item number 7, departmental reports. Monthly staff report for April 1st, 2017. Shirley Benias, Personnel and Risk Management Administrator.
Honorable Mayor, Council Member Shirley Benias, Personnel and Risk Management Administrator. Some positive outlook on the recruitment front. On page 108 of your packets, please note the 3 police officers we currently have vacancies for. We have at least conditional offers out. We have 2 just finalizing the background process, and hopefully will be coming on board, and you'll be meeting them soon. As indicated in the agenda as well, is that you have a closed session item for a Public Works Director. Utility Worker 2 has been promoted. We will be introducing that young man to you in the near future, but that just means I got to open up a Utility Worker 1 position because it was a promotion in-house. And we are in, condition offer letter has been mailed to a Assistant Chief Wastewater Treatment. So we were lucky enough to have a candidate that had a grade 3 in wastewater, which is a very big success. So I just wanted to give you those highlights, and always will entertain questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
If I may highlight, Mayor, the Employee Appreciation Luncheon's coming up April 26th, so please mark your calendars.
Okay. And we have item number 8, informational reports. Record of building permits for February 2017 prepared by Francisco Soto, our building official, and that's part of your packet. We actually have 2 pages of building permits. For those of you that don't see a copy of this record, this gives us all the building permits, every meeting that we have that have been taken out in Brawley. And so you have an idea that there are some things going on out there. A lot of building activity, actually. Okay. That brings us to item number 9, City Council Member Reports, and I'm going to start with Council Member Nava tonight.
Oh, thank you. If you don't mind, I'm going to go up to the podium just to give a quick presentation on the utility tax calculator.
Okay.
So at our last council meeting, we talked about utility tax, and I told you that I had a calculator that I had built some time back to calculate what utility tax, the impact that you have in your own home. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get a business example in time, but I will have one at our next meeting. So I used my own bills for the month of February. Okay, these are my bills that I'm going to show you. And it's a little hard to see here. Let's see if we can, where do I zoom in? Yeah, let's see if I can. All right, cool. All right. Is that the slider right here?
Yeah.
All right. So current utility tax is at 4%. All right, so I have my City of Brawley utility bill, which contains charges for water, sewer, and trash. Not a lot of use because it's February. So the total bill amount was, let's see, $118.70, and so the 4% is $4.74 of that bill, okay? Imperial Irrigation District, I put in the amounts as well. At 4%, it's $2.93. I don't have a phone bill, I have a digital phone, so it's voice over internet, so I don't get taxed on that amount. I have cable bill, $1.80, pardon me? Wait a minute. Yeah. And so Time Warner cable bill, the Spectrum bill, that's what I pay. I have DirecTV, but that's not taxed because it's not a ground utility. But I use Time Warner cable as well. And SoCal Gas, and that's my gas bill. So it all totals for me, at least for my household, the amount that 4% is $10.78. That's what I paid last month. So I wanted to give an example of a business, of a fairly successful business, just to give an example of at least that counter, not just from a residential perspective. So anyway, I will bring that back, and once I lock the cells and do everything, I'm going to make sure I double check the formulas, but it does total up. I did it several times. I would like to make it available for people to be able to use, and maybe they can download it from our city website. So that's
So what's the total?
$10.78 is what I paid in utility tax in February of this year.
So let's go up 5%, 1 more percent.
Sure. Let's see.
I'm gonna get it.
See if we can put it here.
Can you, you're in there, George. I think
My-
you were in it. Yeah.
Am I in there?
Yes.
highlighted, I don't know if how much more would it be? Yeah, how much
Is
more would
your-
it be?
I don't know if it, hold on. Maybe I'll just change this one here. Did it change?
It's up, yeah, you're up top,
But did it change to 5%?
No.
No?
It still says 4.
Oh, the keyboard, okay, here we go. All right, yeah.
You have it?
Yeah, I could actually make a comparison here.
Yeah.
Okay, there.
There you go. So at 5%, it would be $11.18.
Yeah.
So that's, a difference of 45 cents or so. I mean, don't quote me on that math. 4.5%. It just gives you, let's see, no, that's not correct there. Yeah,
No, it's 5.
yeah. Oh,
50%.
we don't want that, right?
No, just 500.
Yeah,
No.
you got it.
No.
Yeah.
He's got 5.5.
Yeah. So it just gives you an idea, and again, I'll double check the formulas to make sure everything's correct. But that, again, the 4% is reflective of my bills, and I added up the totals, it does add up. So it's just a tool that people can use to make sure, if we're going to be making an effort to try and renew the utility tax so people know exactly what they're paying and how that impacts their own lives.
Just interestingly, as an item of note, I pulled out the utility user tax pamphlet that Wanda Couchman had used for the committee. And in that, we took averages from utility billing, trying to do exactly the same thing where we, what would our average customer experience? And the overall value was $12.12 per month. So with maybe with an average usage throughout 12 months, you have the higher water consumption.
Summer months, obviously.
Or the telephone.
So anyway, that's the calculator that I told you I'd bring back, and it works. I'll double check the math again, and then I'll bring a business example so you have it.
Very good.
And then aside from that, also participated in multiple events, but I don't want to take too much more of your time. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief, and thank you, Councilmember Nava, for that. I know that'll help, a lot of people, again, maybe haven't seen that before, and if they have, I know that'll be a helpful tool. I was at the California League of Cities Division meeting. Also, as we just briefed, we had our downtown biz plan meeting. We've had actually multiple meetings on that, including with staff, so I appreciate staff's time. Certainly appreciate our business owners for coming together, Tasty Fusion, as well as Councilmember Nava for leading the charge. And then last night was a part of the National Crime Victims Week honoring that was held at Las Chavelas. It's a very nice, actually, ceremony and presentation to some crime victims that are actually probably well known here in the Valley. And it was, it was led, and the presentation was from our district attorney, Gilbert Eterno. Very well done. So again, appreciate being there. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, I attended some of the same events, the League of Cities meeting and the National Crime Victims' Rights event. That was, like you said, very nice of the district attorney to host that and recognize those victims here in Imperial County. And I also attended the Cesar Chavez celebration on Saturday. Not as well attended as we anticipated, I don't think. There's just so many things going on once the weather changes. I think there's just so many events that, it kind of limits the number of people. But it was still well attended. I just thought that there would be more people there. And then we attended, several of us attended the Girl Scouts tree planting event over here across the street over by the horse. That was really nice. They even recited their Girl Scout theme, and so I hadn't seen that in a long time. So it was really nice to see them go through that little process. That's about it. Thank you.
I also attended the Girl Scout planting of the tree. Also came on Tuesday for the police swearing, the ribbon cutting ceremony at Reserve Park. Several of us were able to attend. And then also attended the water education for Latino leaders. That's it.
Okay.
Make it short and sweet.
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to mention the passing of of a longtime Brawley resident. Dorothy Weber passed away, and some of you may remember Mr. Weber, Don Weber, and he was real instrumental in our educational process here. I think he was a principal superintendent at several of the schools, and he was a longtime resident here. And his wife was also a longtime resident involved in a lot of different activities here, and she passed away recently. I think there's been an obituary in the Ivy Press, and also I think maybe in the Desert Review, but Dorothy Weber, and so I just wanted to mention that. Her family is here, some of her family lives here in town, and I think it's important that we remember some of our longtime residents, the history of our city. I attended the run walk with Anthony Garcia. I actually did the walk, the 2 miles, whatever that was, and I was able to survive that. So, I actually did 2 miles. The 5K is 3.1 and you run, or 3.2 and you run, and I would not have survived that. So they would not allow me to do that. So I did attend the Cesar Chavez celebration downtown here. I judged one of the cars as the mayor's trophy. And I judged it, and then I left real quick because, people get upset when you don't pick their car. So I took off. I was down here 3 or 4 hours. You were here with me. And we did some judging. We looked at the cars. We talked to the people from all over. We had about 100 entries from all over, from Coachella, from Yuma, from the desert hot springs, all over. We had people come in from all over with cars. It was a really neat show, and motorcycles also. So we had a lot of people down there. I also went to the Desert Wildlife Unlimited banquet that evening. A barbecue. I won a gun. I won't go into that very much, but I won a rifle. So that was really kind of neat. I attended the chamber board meeting. I also attended the Air Pollution Control District Advisory meeting in El Centro. Also went to market nights here that they had down here on the plaza. I also went to Pioneers Memorial Hospital to see the Highway Patrol and help them give out the car seats for the people for people that needed car seats. They had a real nice setup there. It was really nice. Yes, Chris. Huh?
Alma was there today.
Alma was there. Okay.
But I didn't get a free car seat.
No, I didn't either.
I hope not.
They wouldn't give me one. I did meet some of the highway patrolmen locally.
So for her grandson.
Very nice. I went to the Girl Scouts tree planting, and these were the young Girl Scouts. These were they used to be brownies, but they call them something else.
They're 5 and 6 year olds.
5 and 6 year olds, very young girls, but they really were excited about the tree planting. One tree by the cowboy. I don't call it the horse. I call it the cowboy. But, I mean, whatever. But we did the planting. It was a little bit. We weren't really prepared for all of it, I don't think, and we didn't quite know what it was going to be like. But it was a lot of fun with the girls. We attended League of Cities dinner, I think. That was something also. And then I went to the San Diego State University Career Fair in Calexico with our reserve officer, our reserve sergeant Arnold Valdez, because his son was involved in that. And so we went down, Amanda Booth talked to the students about careers in policing and also at the cities, at different cities and stuff. So we had a good time there. And then I also did the Reserve Park ribbon cutting. And
And we took a picture with Puppet from American Me?
Yes, we did. We did take a picture. Hopefully that won't be on Facebook. George says it doesn't matter, but to me, it might, so.
With Puppet from American Me, remember Puppet? And then Little Puppet? Yeah.
We took a picture here in Brawley at the Cesar Chavez celebration with that gentleman. He was here. We took a couple of different pictures with him. He was very happy to take a picture with the mayor and the city councilman.
Well, he thought I was the mayor, that's why, but,
he knew I was the mayor. I make that clear. And so with that, that's the end of my report. Okay, yay! Okay, so now then we will go to 10, the city manager's report.
Nothing further to report.
Okay. City attorney, city clerk. All right. With that, we thank everybody for being here, and we will adjourn to, we won't adjourn, we will go to closed session.
Is there anything?
There's one thing for closed session.